All right, mic check 1 2 1 2. Let's see if anybody can hear me in the chat. If you can't hear me in the chat, push one, just as a confirmation. I see people coming in, but I don't see. All right, okay. Just got the confirmation from JB, Mega Montana. What's going on? Lando, what's going on? Said I'm too low. Check my mic volume. Hmm. How do I sound now? If I sound better, confirm that in the chat. My volume's all the way up, so let me see. Okay, Lando says I'm good. All right, well, since you all can hear me and you're already here, uh, welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is open chat number 20. Please hit the like button as you come in, share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. I wanted to have this one because I subscribed to Game Changer, and I posted this on the community tab. And what I found interesting about Game Changers Hangout, it's called Nyla Overflow, and the conversation that they were having about a certain YouTuber in the manosphere and Robert F. Smith, and the relation and correlation between who should be validated and who should not be validated in terms of being pro-black and all this other stuff, right? And they said that if it was between Robert F. Smith and this other brother, that somehow, some way, they would approve this other brother. But the question is over Robert Smith, and the question is why? Who gets to determine the the I guess the substance and the validity of being pro-black and conscious? Who gets to determine that? Trey asks a question. Trey says, "Why don't you use StreamYard?" StreamYard is for bloggers, or vloggers, I should say. They're for vloggers, and the thing is, we're not particularly vlogging, and StreamYard is a beta platform. It's going to be a long time before they get that before they get the platform stable. The mobile product is almost a very early alpha based product in its development life cycle. So it's in the very early phases. Um, Zoom is a very mature product in comparison to StreamYard. It's probably years in advance, um, better than StreamYard. So StreamYard is something that we really don't have that much interest in. Yeah, hit the like button if you're not going to participate in the chat. We got like 15 people watching and only 6 likes. So we're getting back to Game Changer. Hey, what's going on, Dr. Phoenix? What's going on, Complex? Getting back to Game Changer. I thought the conversation was interesting because um, the things that they were saying, I actually agree with. In terms of Robert F. Smith and the correlation between the criminality of Black males in their masculinity, and that's something that we've talked about before. The criminality aspect and the masculinity, the manufacturing of the masculinity, and that's what they seem to respect on that side of the fence. You know, those other people over there, they seem to really, really respect that type of stuff. And I heard one woman on another hangout. This is in relation to what Game Changer's hangout was, and she said that she grew up hood and she had a criminal record herself, in that because of that and because of the environment that every Black male that she had to deal with had a criminal record. And I thought that was interesting because it begs the question: is it necessary to have one in order to be validated? Because what it seems like to me, that Robert F. Smith did more in one day than what some of these other guys have done their whole lifetime, and yet his credibility, his being Robert F. Smith, his credibility is invalid because of his spouse, but her credibility should be taken seriously regardless of her spouse. So there seems to be a do as I say, not as I do sort of campaign that they push on their platform, and that's why I wanted to have the hangout tonight, because I thought Game Changer, Mumia Ali, and what's the other brother that was over there? Mr. Fantastic. Mr. Fantastic was over there as well. Shout out to Mr. Fantastic. I thought he put in some serious comments as well on this. I can't really disagree with what they were saying. I thought what they were saying was actually, fairly indisputable. And that, because this other YouTuber that they were speaking of, somehow, some way, he deserves to have a whole lot of credit. And I'm saying, we've covered articles on various Black men who did a lot of not just community work but global work, and they don't get any credit at all. And yet you get one YouTuber, or one Black man who's on YouTube, who happens to frequent that section of YouTube. I don't know what you want to call that section. Um, and suddenly he's given a whole lot of credit over these other guys, but the direct correlation is that he has a criminal history and they have a criminal history. So that's what they're identifying with. And the criminal history is giving him credence in those circles, and that somehow his past, his checkered past, should actually give him more credibility in reference to Robert F. Smith. Miss Gigi, good evening to you. Um, what's the deal with his spouse? His spouse is white. It's a white woman. And supposedly she posed for Sports Illustrated or something like that, which I find interesting as a critique, because there are many melanated women who spread themselves all over IG and whatnot, and no one seems to have a problem with that. and they do it for free. So the point that I'm making here is that I think that we should dissect a whole lot of this. I think there should be more dialogue around that whole entire concept of what they were talking about. It was going on, Complex.
I'm good, Mike. What's going on with you, fam?
I'm chilling, man.
Yeah, you know, hey, I was actually, I participated in that discussion on Game Changers Hangout. I think it was Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday. Towards the end of it, yeah, man. You know, I think sometimes we put Black culture in like this monolithic view, when in all actuality, I think there's diametric opposition, right? Depending on where you fall in the spectrum. There seems to be a part or a segment of Black culture that views things from like the opposing view, in the sense that what's bad is good, right? So everything is sort of qualified by the bad shit you've done, versus where on the other end, and like with anyone who acts with a modicum of progression, they typically look at like the good works, right? And what the good works have produced. And so I don't know. And then you know, the other thing too is we have this phenomena where a lot of Black folks fall in the middle, and they what they do is they straddle. They see both sides of the discussion, right? So it's kind of like, you know, yeah, well, you know, he makes good points, right? I mean, look, a broken fucking clock is right twice a day, okay? Right. That you know what I mean? But, and I'm sorry, dude, I'm in the car. I'm heading back to the pad right now. But so yeah, I mean, any idiot can make a good point. Like an idiot is not, it doesn't lack the ability to make a good point or to make a connective proposition, right, based on an observation. However, if their overall standing or position is one that says, well, look, unless you participated in tearing down your community, you can't be a person qualified to build it up. I mean, dude, what kind of thinking is that? What kind of logic is that?
It's selfishness, right? It's somehow your money belongs to everybody else, but our money belongs to us, right? So whatever achievements they create, then they don't have to share that with you, but whatever accomplishments you have has to be redistributed to everyone else, and you shouldn't have anything to say. That's an
obligation of yours.
Yeah, that's a very autocratic approach, and that's very dangerous, because what happens here is those who want to aspire to the community as a whole are basically being held to, you know, one standard, and that standard is you're not valid. Your validity is based on your spouse and not on your achievements. And there are plenty of Black men on YouTube who only deal with Black women and don't do nothing for anybody in the community as a whole. Not even for them, not even for their own kids. But yet he's credible because of his spouse. But Robert F. Smith is not credible because of who he's with and his lack of a checkered past. I find that to be a very dubious approach to this whole entire position.
Well, and you know, if it wasn't for the fact that so much of this bullshit is actually validated in the Black community, I mean, we would largely just write these individuals off who espouse this silly notion. They would just largely just kind of be written off. They wouldn't even be taken seriously from an intellectual standpoint. They really wouldn't. But again, since we have a large segment of Black culture that serves as fence straddlers, right? and they don't really have any hardcore convictions.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of them have had these same. Well, a lot of them do have these same type of people in their families. These are close relatives. May have even been a parent or two. They themselves may even have their phase where they participated in this type of shit, so they can quote unquote sympathize, or empathize. But there's never any like hardcore conviction that says, no, that's some bullshit. Like just unequivocal. That's some bullshit, straight up and down.
Well, the
So
conversation
since, go ahead, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say that the conversation I heard from the I won't mention her name because I don't think we really deal with that side, but she said that on her one of the live streams from Saturday that she grew up in the hood, so therefore most of the black men, if not all of the black men she dealt with, had some form of criminal history, and that justifies her dealings with those types of men, and therefore um, somebody like Robert F. Smith would not be credible in that neighborhood, and that the dudes who do have that criminal past are authentic. They're more authentic. Well,
Okay.
how could it be more authentic if you're telling me that you you got arrested because you sold a bag of weed or something like that? That somehow that validates you. That validates your credibility and your masculinity as a black man. But somehow a brother who bails out a graduating class at $40 million, somehow, some way, he that doesn't justify. I mean, that doesn't legitimize his credibility in their eyes.
Well, you know what? Let's go on that. Let's go on that. All right. So if that's how we're rolling, then you know what? Then you need to take the motherfuckers that you find credible, take them to task for letting your communities go to shit. That's the thing. I mean, if that is your position, then you need to buy into that shit wholesale 100%. So the same motherfuckers that you find more validity in are the same motherfuckers that you need to bring to task for having your communities look like shit, running like shit, all the shit that goes on in the communities. Okay, the men that you validate, hold those motherfuckers to task. And you should have zero to no opinions about anybody else and what they do, because see, they're invalid. Right? See, so if they're invalid, well, they shouldn't really be any sort of concern of yours, or you should have basically no opinion with regards to anything it is that they do to help anyone else out. As a matter of fact, you really shouldn't have an opinion, because the people that Robert F. Smith paid the tuitions for, well, look, those dudes are all invalid too, right? Because they're all college grads. They're not criminals and shit. See, so the whole lot is invalid. So you should have zero opinion, zero anything about any goddamn thing, and you should turn around, look at your goddamn community, look at the shape that it's in, and hold the men that you validate responsible.
Mm-hmm. You think about the football analogy, right? And if you think about a quarterback who gets sacked two times on first and second down, and then it's 3rd and 20. So he throws a completion, whether it's a run, whether it's a shuffle handoff or a lob. Okay, so now it's first and now it's 1st and 12 or something like that, and you're right back to where you started. You never really advance. You're just getting back the yardage that you lost on the 2 turnovers or the 2 sacks. How is that? How is getting the first down out of those 2 sacks an accomplishment? Well, why is that? Why is that to be given any sort of credibility at this point?
Because see, in their view, a gain is a gain, right? Right. See, because we're steadily losing. So when we do have a gain, it's a gain, and that's what we're viewing it as. Right? It's not as if you're having consistent gains. It's not like you're constantly moving the fucking chains, right? That's not happening. You're typically, what you're doing is you're taking losses, and then you have one gain, like you said, that makes up for all the goddamn losses. But basically, it puts you back at square one. But see, that's what a person who doesn't view things with an era of progression, because that's what we're doing, progress, right? Moving forward, that's progress. So when you're not, when you're regressing, and then you have a gain to bring you right back to square one, like you won in the sense because of all of the losses, you had one gain. It's a very fucked up way to think.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, man. And I see this sort of talking point always being pushed in the manosphere. Um, that somehow, some way, and it's the same sort of discussion about Nipsey Hussle, right? Well, Nipsey did this, and you don't know what he was doing. He did this and he did that. There are many black men who did the same exact thing. They didn't get any credit, and I just find that to be interesting because I see, posts on Instagram from other IG, what's supposed to be IG models, whatever you want to call them, and they're all throwing up, Nipsey's collages and stuff like that, and you know, for what they're giving him credit for is they're unwilling to give credit to other black men. So I always find this interesting because they said he turned his life around. So now, in order to have credibility as a black man and your masculinity validated, you had to take two steps backwards to and make that one step forward in order to be credible. If that's going to be the case, then every black man has to be a criminal in order to in order to be credible in the books. But
Right.
what value does that really have as a collective? Where's the value in that? What's the value
It's
proposition?
that it's that social, it's that black cultural martyrdom thing, right? It's like, oh, he started from the bottom, he went here, and then he went out on top,
Hmm.
right? And usually you going out requires another nigga taking you out,
Hmm.
right? Who is also viewed as some sort of, it's so fucking dysfunctional because see, even the dude who takes the guy out, see, he's looked at some sort of G in some regards,
Hmm.
right? Like the fact that you took out a king, you took the dude you took out who was on top, that somehow makes you some sort of some sort of hero to be revered. I mean, I'm gonna throw his name out there too. That's nigga Taz, dude. This nigga had the audacity to sit up here and tell me that thugs needed to be revered. It's that same fucking mindset, and I'm like, dude, under what logical circumstances is that to be the case? Like, you can't even present a logical argument to me that would suggest that that's something that black culture wholesale needs to celebrate. I was like, that's some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. But this is what black culture largely espouses. And like I said, you have too much of a gray area amongst the black populace who can flip flop, who straddles the fence, and can largely identify with that type of shit. And it's highly dysfunctional. It really is.
Hmm. Can't can't disagree with that. Yeah. Some of the stuff that you and I have talked about in the past, on these past hangouts, or the past live streams, has been about innovation. And a lot of people say, well, why don't black people do this and why don't black people do that? Well, that's because you're not, innovation comes from complex conversations and thought. If you think about what they're pushing with their talking points, it is not complex at all. In fact, it's very basic. It's a very
Very,
basic,
very pedestrian.
yeah, very basic, very pedestrian. No sort of complexities to it. No sort of I would say there's no logic to it either. It's really just it's really stagnated, right? There's stagnation in the thought process that says I'm gonna, if I get into this and that negative that sets me back and I bounce back from it, then that is more important for my my validity and my integrity than actually doing it right the first time. So some of these people I've heard over the weekend, they brag about their kids' grades and they brag about their kids' accomplishments. Wow, my daughter's doing this and my son is doing that. But that's not what you. So why do you invalidate it when it comes to Robert F. Smith? Why do you do that?
Well, they don't want to take that. Because what they don't want to do is have some sort of, see, they want to separate the narrative. And that's why I'm saying, dude, you got to buy into your shit wholesale. Okay. Because on the one hand, you're not going to tell me that criminals are the only men that you validate. But then at the same time, you want to pass shit off as if, you're just you're the best fucking parent walking the face of the planet and all your kids have straight A's. No, see, by your logic, your kids, as they grow, they need to actually engage in criminal activity also, so that they can be validated too.
Right.
So which one is it?
Right, and we're not talking about people getting pulled over, people jaywalking. They cross the street without actually pushing the button and red light.
Ain't paid your registration.
Yeah, like you blew past a stop sign. That's not criminal negligence, right? There's no. It's not. It's very benign, sort of violations and citations that come from that. You parked in front of a fire hydrant, so therefore you're no different than these guys. Actually, I would beg to differ, right? I had one woman I heard over the weekend say, a lot of these educated brothers, a lot of these corporate brothers don't always pay their taxes, so therefore, who are they to talk?
What, dude? What, like that is just some dumb shit to say. Like there's no like logical retort to that other than that's just some dumb shit to say.
Yeah. I mean, literally, she said that. Who are they to criticize and who are they to talk? And that the baseline should be here that those educated brothers should be working with the street brothers. But in order for these people to work together, there has to be some form of commonality that comes from the pairing up in the alliance of business. Quid pro quo. Who benefits? Cui bono? Who benefits? The link is in the chat if anybody wants to get on the panel, and if you feel free to disagree.
Hey, Mike, give me 1 second. I'm gonna switch devices, okay?
Yep. If you want to get on the panel, make sure you raise your hand so that we can acknowledge you. Guten Tag, Paul Bryant. Guten Tag.
Guten Abend, mein Bruder. Wie geht es dir?
What's going on, Thai City?
What's up, Mike?
Show him, fam. Who else we got? We got Super Triz, man. Mr. C8.
Hey, what's going on, Mike? Respect to everybody on the panel. I mean, you guys already know how I feel about this situation because I've been speaking on this the last couple of streams. People who haven't contributed to society, who haven't contributed to the community, are trying to determine doctrine for the actual community, which is very ironic. And it's interesting you brought up Nipsey Hussle because I'm about to say something that's probably gonna rub people the wrong way, but I'm gonna just, as they say, keep it a stack, because when we look at the situation that Nipsey Hussle found herself in, well, let's kind of rewind a little bit, because we have to find out what's so alluring about Nipsey Hussle, because he represents a pathway to success that's unconventional, and people look at it, from the outside looking in, and they say, well, I could be hard, I can have basically street cred, do things that are counterintuitive to societies as a whole, and then somehow still make it to quote unquote millionaire status. And that's what's appealing to people, because nobody wants to go the conventional route where they have delayed gratification, because see, they look at Nipsey Hussle as somebody who was validated in the streets. So he received that admiration from women the entire time.
Right.
And so that's what's appealing to them, because there is no making a sacrifice now. It's I can do what I want to do right now, and at some point down the line, I'll still be successful. And I get to rub it into people's faces that went the conventional route and they don't make as much money as me. This is the mentality of a lot of people, because they don't want to sacrifice. They don't want that delayed gratification. But see, this is the problem. This is what got Nipsey Hussle in the situation that he was in now. Because here's the problem: when people try to circumvent societal norms, they usually end up dead or in jail. And so what happens is that people revel at the ability to not adhere to societal norms and disregard the laws of a society, because that's like the rebellious nature. And so now they end up getting incarcerated. And here's the irony in this: you go to prison, and all of a sudden you thought that you were disregarding societal norms. Now you go to prison, you have to adhere to prison politics. You have somebody who's in the same situation as you dictating to you how to conduct yourself behind bars. And a person that's dictating to you is probably somebody that will never see the light of day again. Somebody who's a criminal just like you, telling you what to do. But when you was out in the streets, you thought nobody could tell you anything. But then you go to prison, and prison's supposed to be you're supposed to be surrounded by people who just like you, people who are outlaws, people who are misfits, but yet and still they have to all adhere to prison politics. You can't use that water fountain. You can't sit at that table. You can't use that telephone. You can't turn a channel in that day room. This is prison politics. And so then, right now, you have a situation where you've transcended your humble beginnings. Now you're a business owner. Now you're a property owner. Now you have to think about other things outside of just being hood. And now you have a place of business, and the people who come from where you come from are doing things that are detrimental to your business, hanging out in front of your establishment, committing crimes in front of your establishment, police constantly being called. Now you're threatened to have your lease absolved because you're creating so many problems. But see, the problem is that you have these individuals making it hard for you to do business, but really and truly, you were doing the same thing when you were in their position before you quote unquote made it. So all of this stuff really doesn't make any sense, because part of the problem, that's what got Nipsey Hussle killed. Because if he had conducted his business the way other people conduct business, say, no, what, you can't loiter in front of here. Once you make your purchases, you need to make your way home. This is a place of business. There's no hanging out in front of my establishment. But see, people don't understand the trajectory. There's a reason why there are what you consider to be societal norms. There are rules in place, because we understand that when we have like a pathway, there's a trajectory, and we know that certain things are not sustainable. It's not sustainable to have a business and have people hanging out in front of your business all times of the night, especially men. There's bound to be conflict. There's bound to be some drama. It's not sustainable. This is the reason why we have laws, and people just don't understand that. They think they can go through life and do what they want to do and still make it, and disregard how it affects everybody else around them.
Right. And, you know, what I find interesting about you and I, we kind of came up, in our careers the same way. Work all day, go to school at night, full time, 16 credits, 12 credits, whatever it was, leveled our ways up. You went from being EMT to nursing, you went to military. I did, the other route in terms of IT. I went from, basic IT to cybersecurity and networking and things of that nature. So we put in a lot of work. There was no time for me. I worked from 8 to 5, had to be at class at 6, from 6 to 10, and then from 10 o'clock, go home, and then do it all over again the next day. There was no time for screwing around. So this idea that, you had to have street credibility. I wasn't. How can I be in the street? I was too busy in class, man. I was too busy at work. I was too busy putting in work. So I just find it interesting that, you know, the way they give credit to these guys is always based on the fallacy of you know, the poverty, the impoverishment, the criminality, and the lack of political infrastructure.
Well, Mike, you really have to think about, you have to really, really like let it sink in. Okay. When a group of people say that that is what validates them, like literally the fucking worst, the worst of the worst is what validates them. Like I'm going to say this and, you know, and I really want it to kind of like let people think that I don't even know if we're of the same stock in terms of humanity at that point. If you honestly feel that way, if you think that the ultimate worst of you is the best of you, if your concepts are that regression is progression, it's almost like some fucking Orwell 1984 type shit. Like war is peace. You get what I'm saying? Like if you fundamentally think that way, we need to just go ahead and call a line of separation. Be like, you know what? We're gonna have to like make a new type of name for y'all, or we'll make a new type of name for us, or we'll come up with some sort of term that literally separates like like progressive, forward-thinking, upwardly mobile, a black society versus the regressive strain of us, right? And I don't even I'm fearful for even using the word us. Get what I'm saying? Like there's something fundamentally wrong with that.
Yeah. I mean, and go ahead. Somebody's gonna say something. Go right ahead, Paul Bryan.
Hey, Paul, what's up, man?
Good evening, Ulysses. Guys, you know what? You already know where I feel on this. It is not a strain. It is not a regressive strain. It is the majority of Black people in America. That is the culture. That is the culture. Now, see, if we're being intellectually honest, people need to sit down and take some hard looks. People who are quote unquote thinking, people who are even people who are pro-blacks, you do not represent the majority of Black people in America. You do not. If you're being intellectually honest, the majority of Black people in America and Black culture, they're useless eaters. That is what they are. Education is not valued. People like Jay-Z and Nipsey Hussle and others like that, they're celebrated as the best and the brightest, running around talking like slavery ended yesterday.
Well,
with
not
your
not
pants
not
hanging
Jay-Z.
down.
Not Jay-Z.
Yeah,
Jay-Z
yeah,
doesn't really. I mean, he's well groomed in terms of like
yeah.
PR.
Hey, hey,
I
Paul,
strongly disagree, but that's neither here nor there. The point that I'm trying to make here is that majority of Black people, you do not have your voice. So whether you are people who are objective, all right, and are basically echoing the same points that we echo here, we represent a vast minority of people, the vast majority who make up Black society in America, the Black culture. It is a culture of failure. It is a culture of laziness. It is a culture of complacency. That's what the culture is, and it is a culture of blame. See, in a polite society, once you become a victim, you cannot blame the victim. So someone at some point in time sold Black people victimhood. And that is the ground basis for everything that you see for the basis of Black society in America. Now, these are difficult concepts for most people to grasp. I understand that. But if you're being intellectually honest, that's what it is. So that is why you have heard me say consistently, those few who have the intellectual and the financial capital and resources, even down to the youth, That is who you focus on. That is the stock that you have to work with. And that is exceedingly limited. The vast majority must be left to their own devices. You can't change them. You cannot fix them. You can't uplift them. You cannot. And doing so, you're only going to turn your pockets out at the end of the day and go emotionally, mentally, and financially bankrupt trying to save something that is completely broken. And it is the mindsets that have to change. Until that mindset and that culture changes, nothing for the vast majority will change. That is why I am a proponent for those few who you can work with. You work with them and you create a new society from the best and the brightest.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry for the long rant.
No, it's fine. That's fine.
You're good, Paul.
Hey, I'm with Paul Bryant 100% on that, man. He just spoke facts. I mean, that's all there is to it, because again, you can't save anybody. Even other cultures, they have constituencies, you know, of their quote unquote community that are non-productive, right? And so like you know, it's just like gardening. You know, if you don't cut off that brown leaf, that plant is going to expend so many resources trying to revive that brown leaf. But that's the reason why you prune it. You just cut it off, and then the rest of the plant grows. So it's like, you know, it's in the society that we live in, right? It's based a lot on finances. So if somebody makes barely enough to just cover their cost of living expenses, what can they really contribute to the community other than staying out the way? It's so we look at and we say, oh well, it's a small percentage of the quote unquote community that's, you know, that really is contributing, but it's really not the numbers that matters, because even if you have a lot of people in the community, a lot of them don't really have anything to contribute because they're marginal at best. And see, it like, even if you don't make a lot of money, it takes an extreme amount of discipline to actually save, right? And to be able to contribute something financially to the pot. Other than that, you're gonna have to work extra hours. That's all there is to it. Either you decrease expenditures or you increase revenue. That's it. That's all there is to it. And most people, again, that delayed gratification is something that they don't want to come to terms with, because it's like, instead of working 40 hours, because you know that myth, well, full time is 40 hours. So they feel, well, I work full time, so I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. But see me, you know, full time is just like it's just like a metric. That's all that is. Because for me, full time is a full time. Like, I don't feel right if I only work. Like, I'll be upset when right now I'm only working 48 hours this week, and I'm pissed off. Now 48 hours is overtime, but I'm still pissed off. I feel like I should be working 56 at least. But see, most people don't think like that, because they're like, well, you know, I want to have fun. I want to go on trips and blah, blah, blah. I want to do this. I want to do that. But then again, that's that selfish perspective where you're looking at your own gratification and not thinking about, okay, what can I do to contribute to my community, because we've fallen so far behind. Nobody else thinks like that. So that's the reason why you can't keep, I don't know who said that earlier. You can't keep like what that mentality where your money is my money and my money is my money.
I said
like,
that, yeah.
Oh, that was you. Okay, so you keep contributing, and there's nothing to show for it, because you're taking that pie and you're cutting too many different slices out of that one piece of pie, as opposed if you have a smaller circle, everybody gets a bigger slice. But with that smaller circle, everybody's contributing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like a rotary engine. You just keep throwing money at it, man, and it doesn't seem to have return on investment.
Don't do it like that, man.
Mike with the shots.
No,
Hey.
Ty City, man, jump in here, man. You've been quiet, man. And then we gotta go
Yeah,
to
man,
game.
I've been listening to y'all perspectives, you know what I'm saying? But me, I was raised in the streets kind of by street niggas, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, first thing I want to say is, you hear some of these guys on these panels, like, these is not street niggas, first of all. Like, I couldn't imagine them yelling and hollering at some of the people that I know. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And claim to be representing the same thing. They're not even from the same cloth. Like trust me, you know what I'm saying? And just based off of that, they don't even get to have that validity from that side. You know what I'm saying? Even from the perspective that they think they speaking from, they're not speaking from that perspective. You know what I'm saying? Me, I already removed myself. I'm long gone from the community. You know what I'm saying? I hate the hood. You know what I'm saying? And you know, when my dad was doing this thing when I was younger, he told me a story about how, you know, he was getting paper. Him and my uncles getting paper, and the people would come to them. You know what I'm saying? They would sponsor baseball teams. They would have back in Florida. My dad would tell me that they would have to pay to go to summer school because they didn't have funding for summer school. So if you didn't go to summer school, you failed. Yep. Like my dad and them put money up for whoever needed to go to summer school to go to summer school. And you know, my dad, he got locked up. He went to the feds. He came out, and everybody was gone. And everybody who could do anything was gone. And he got out around 98. You know what I'm saying? So he removed himself also. But when it comes to resources and things of that nature being mismanaged in the wrong places, I get it 100%. I get it. And man, like, just to be in the hood, it just drains you. Like, it just drains your spirit. It ain't nowhere you want to be. I can't only imagine having to like be there every day. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when you hear these people talk about, hey, what can you do, blah, blah, man, you got to understand, these people have invested in their own ideas and they not going to back out of them.
Well, you know, Ty, this is why I had said early on, I said, look, you know, if first of all, if who's invalidated in the quote unquote hood is hood inwards. My daughter's right here, so so if that's who's validated, then you know there really should be no discussion or no opinions about those who actually do make something of themselves and then they go about leaving this community, right? Because they were invalid anyway. You see, so they should, you know, their flight should have no, it shouldn't bother those who have largely validated them anyway. So then I turn in and I say, okay, to those who have been validated, those who are valid, why does your shit look the way it does? Why does the community function act the way it does?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The people who had the actual pull, the quiet people who had who actually were about action and making things happen, they're not even around no more. That's what I'm saying. You getting the loudmouth representation. You getting the you getting the people who aren't actually doing anything.
But
because
see, that's part of the paradox right there, you know, because you have the best and the brightest who make it through, make it up, they produce, they educate themselves, they are successful. Some of us own businesses, and for some reason, we are not supposed to turn around and then look at the lowest of the low, the worst and the worst, and somehow we get attacked because we say, no, I can't work with that.
Well, one of the things I heard, one of the things I heard on Gay Changers Hangout was that they were being called coon for not adhering. Right, you would be called a coon for not adhering to these sort of principles that, you know, that these other people on the other side were laying out. And I find that to be interesting because you're basically holding these people hostage. You're holding their integrity hostage so that they cannot, so that they have to play by your rules, but your rules haven't advanced you. So therefore, why would it advance them?
But Mike,
Bingo.
their rules are a lack thereof.
Thank
Right.
you. Bingo. It doesn't
What's
work.
yeah, Gabe dropped off, so I was gonna go to Gabe. He just dropped off, but
Maybe
yeah,
back.
yeah. If you all haven't checked the community tab, I posted it. I think maybe early this morning. It's not that long of a hangout. It's only like 2 hours or something like that. But it was very interesting to hear the talking points.
Yeah, but check this out, Mike. This is what I'm saying. Like, you're dealing with people who grew up with these. I wouldn't even call them morals or code, or it's a way of thinking. Like, they're not finna change right now. They're not finna just flip a switch and just snap out of it. You know what I'm saying? So they're gonna argue it to the death.
And that's fine, you know, Ty. That's I mean, that's fine. All I'm saying is to quote, you know, a lot whoever is using these terms, you know, show your work. I guess that's like the new catchphrase that's kind of circulating around the manosphere, or what have Black manosphere. Show your work. So you actually have to show something that validates that stance, right? So if you're gonna show me some fucking ravaged, goddamn, you know, trash infested hood, and you're gonna give that to me as valid proof.
Okay, but check this out. That's not them show. That's not how, man. Okay, so street niggas, they show they work by their brotherhood. They show how they work by togetherness.
How do we quantify that with some sort of currency or value?
But that's what I'm telling you. Like, street cred is actually valuable to these people. That's what I'm telling you. Like,
what is street credit on the in the credit markets? Like what like I'm saying, I know, I get what you're saying. I get what I'm saying is this. I am literally proposing what I'm countering with here, and it's not to you, Ty City. It is to those who think that way. So let's quantify it then. Give it a denomination or an actual fucking value, so that we can then stack it up against those who are actually progressive, and then we can see, like, so for example, we saw Robert F. Smith drop 40 mil. Okay, we can quantify that with an actual number. Okay, and we can also predict the future benefits from that, because see, now these are men who are going to go into highly technical positions in society, debt free. Might I add.
Trust me, I understand what you're saying, but I grew up around these people. I have them in my family.
So do I.
And it is a deep psychological flaw that does not garner anything. I'm not, and you know what I'm saying? Like, I get where y'all coming from, but I'm not even, when you understand the extent of it, you don't even engage with these people.
Hey, Ty City, can I ask you a question, Ty City? So now, because believe me when I understand, and Ulysses understands, I'm sure Mike V understands. We understand exactly what you're saying. Okay. So now my question to you is this: how can I, as a business owner, what makes you think that I am going to deal with individuals like that who have that mindset, or other people who come from that community and that mindset? How do you expect me to bring those people into my business?
What is the value?
Wait. I'm finna answer you, Paul. Let me tell you something.
Because that
he hadn't finished his statement.
Because now, at the end of the day, that's my money. That's my partner's money. And the individuals who we do business with now on the commercial real estate fronts that we've been doing business in for years, that's their money as well.
Okay,
how can I possibly deal with the lowest of the low where people's money are now involved? So that street level mentality that stays in the street. How can I
Paul,
possibly work with
hey,
the lowest
Paul,
of the low?
let me tell you, about 4 years ago, I found what I thought was a great business opportunity in South Dallas.
Mhm.
It was it was a small lot, but it was a gas station that was used as a used car lot, right?
Mhm.
So it was vacant for a while, and I went and I actually acquired the lot. I got my dealer's license, and I started putting cars on the lot. How long do you think I was in that in that lot?
3 months.
2 months.
God damn it.
I had cars. Just one weekend, it went to shit in one weekend. Just it was good business. I was starting to learn the business, how to start doing in-house financing and all the rest of it. And I couldn't even, you know what I'm saying? I know what you're saying, because I couldn't even insure the place for what I needed it insured for, because the area that it was in, the insurance was so high. So believe me, I understand like how hard it is to actually bring real economics into those. You ain't got to tell me, Paul. Trust me.
And it's
But
a
I think Paul's
mindset.
being, but Paul's like, that's largely what he was saying. It was largely rhetorical. It wasn't like, we trust me. We all know. That's why I said 3 months, and he was like 2. Trust me, I get what you're saying, and I think Paul gets what you're saying too. Yeah.
I took a total loss.
The idea and the theory. Listen, I understand the idea that that Black people in America, they want to have their quote unquote own. They want to be on the same socioeconomic strata as let's say what it is as white society in America. I understand that. My point that I'm making, and I can't speak for these brothers, but I think the point that Complex and Mike is also making is the majority of what you have to work with now, that's never going to happen. You have to focus on the best and the brightest and put them on the path so that you can create a new Black culture and a new Black society that can elevate themselves to where they are on the same socioeconomic strata. The majority cannot be worked with.
Hence, Robert F. Smith putting $40 million behind a bunch of brothers graduated college versus $40 million in the goddamn hood.
And he was attacked. And he was attacked by the very same people who people with that mentality want an individual like myself with a business to work with the majority of these current people. They attacked him because he's not Black enough, because he has something different on his own.
But look, Paul, listen, we talking about 40 million. That's just off the baseline. They saying 40 million. We dealing with people who don't even understand that it's interest attached to what they would have been paying if he didn't handle that for him.
He handled it. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
Go ahead, it's the short-sightedness of certain constituencies in the community, because they don't understand that by doing what he did, he empowered each and every last one of them to do the same in the future.
Yep.
Now they freed up capital so that way they can be contributors to society. You see what I'm saying? So but see what they wanted him to pull up to the hood with a semi truck loaded with Jordans and pass them out. That's what they rather have done. Handing out turkeys. I mean, all this stuff that really has no sustainability. All this stuff that really, when you look at the trajectory of it, it's really pointless. Like
it's a PR stunt. It's a PR stunt for them. That's the hood politics, right? PR stunt.
Yeah.
Little selfies and
they fall for it. They fall for it hook, line, and sinker every time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is why political organizations really don't think that they have to do much, right, to garner a vote from Black people. Right? Or from Black men. Yeah, right. It's a photo op. You know, like all Hillary Clinton has to do, for example, and she's done this numerous times. Just show up at a black church.
History proves that. History proves that.
Yeah.
Look at Baby Bush. Baby Bush, don't quote me his first term or second term, but either one. Baby Bush got 3% of registered black voters in the United States of America. If you look at his father, and if you look at Ronald Reagan, and you go back to Gerald Ford before President Carter, what has that proved? And then again, you look at also our current president, Donald J. Trump. You have proved that the Republican Party does not need black people's votes to put presidents in office. So why should they give a damn about you? Now, I'm always saying left wing, right wing, it's the same bird. There is no difference between Republican and Democrat. That is all public theater. My point is that the culture and mindset is so inept that even political education is non-existent amongst American black society and culture. Yet they turn around and attack any person, specifically like a Robert Smith, who actually did something to help the best and the brightest. Maybe, I mean, yeah, my God.
No, go right ahead. Finish your statement. I'll come right behind you.
No, I'm done. Go.
No, I was just going to make a point that you were on live streams that we had in February for Black History Month. All those black men we covered. You know, all the good work that they've done over their lifetime has contributed to the greatest society as we know it today. I mean, a brother was the original designer behind the automatic transmission. You're talking anti-lock brakes. Just a whole lot of a litany of things that people use today that they don't, no one ever takes a second to look back and say, oh, it was a brother that made that. But yet, this other guy, seasons up a turkey or something like that, or gives out some hash browns, and all of a sudden now he's man, and it's like, wait a second, wait.
Studio time.
yeah, studio time, man. It's crazy how we the value system is crazy. I just think that the lack of advancement is coming from it must be Super Triz.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that might be him. Okay. Yeah, so the point that I'm making here is that the lack of advancement is really coming from the people who benefit the most from the hood being the hood as it is, right? The hood being this impoverished environment, politically underrepresented and economically starved. They need the environment to remain the way that it is in order for them to justify whatever it is that they're doing. So when you have somebody,
it's a power grab. That's what it is.
Right. So when you have thinking black men who come in there and say, "Now we're gonna take these bulldozers, we're gonna level this whole entire thing out. We getting rid of these, these PJs. We getting rid of all of that stuff. There will be no more playgrounds. There'll be new infrastructure put up. Oh no, where we gonna hang at? How about the library? Go get yourself a card, right?
Exactly.
It's one of those things that they need the hood to be what it is right now, because without it, they have no other cover.
And it destroys their whole identity.
What's going on, Richard Dixon?
Peace, y'all.
Oh shit! Finally.
Yeah, the BAIO is in the building, man.
Yes, sir.
Man. I definitely want to speak to the Billy Goat, man.
Billy Goat.
Oh yeah, the Billy Goat. Yep.
The Billy Goat. Wait, hold on. Are we going Masonic on this right now?
No.
No.
This is actually quite rudimentary. I'll fill you in on it a little later.
Yeah, it's the greatest of all thoughts.
Oh.
Yeah, he's the source of all the confusion been going on lately.
Yeah, thought being THTS.
Yeah, Richard, it's all you, man. Go ahead.
My thing is all this confusion is the source of this dude insecurities. All his talking points, even him, broadcasting these actions he's doing, he doesn't care about the community. All of this is this battle he has with intellectual brothers. he doesn't respect. And and I done met other dudes like this.
Mm-hmm.
And and all dudes from the streets ain't like this. That's another thing that tripped me out by him. A lot of dudes actually respect intellectual brothers. Dudes from, they'll talk to, they respect, they be glad, like, damn, man, dude made it. They maybe in high school, maybe dudes was clowning, but after high school, man, nobody ain't really tripping like that no more. Mm-hmm. And it irks me that this dude lasted this long. Like I was saying all the way back last year, this is not going to end well. I'm always in the chats and I'm like, why can't nobody see what I'm seeing? Like, and everything happened just like I said it was going to happen in all these chats on everybody's channels, saying the same shit over and over and over. Mm-hmm. Stop letting these women on the goddamn panels.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me say this, man, because I don't think I 100% agree with that, right? I think the problem is when you mentioned women,
it's a little more nuanced than that. Now that was kind of that was a general statement, but
yeah, but I want to make sure we clear it up because I don't want any sound bites being taken and they saying
I feel you on that,
anti-women and stuff. The problem with brothers like that, and I don't want to just single him out, because Trump did support the farmers, and goats do roam on farms.
So shout out to goats,
yeah. Shout out to the Trump administration for their willingness to support, the farmer bill, bailout for them. But the point that I'm making here is that he gets the battery that's in his back came from those very same supporters, and it didn't actually have to have those women on panels or anything like that. It had to do with who's pushing him, right? Because if those supporters over there if they were not pushing him, he wouldn't have a voice, right? He would make a lot of noise, but he wouldn't actually be able to get on panels and express his views. Guys like that, get that sort of support, and so they keep going until people pull back and say, "No, I'm not really rocking with them like that." But you see it in their chats, their hashtag facts. I'm like, what is he saying? That's facts, because a lot of what he's saying it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, especially when I heard him on Game Changers Hangout. They're throwing up, these little goats and stuff like that, and it's like, y'all kill me because y'all never pull up here. Y'all never go to the Coliseum over there, Black Gnostics Hangout. Y'all never pull up over there. Y'all stay in your own little confined area where you can't be challenged, because what you're saying has no credibility. If you think it has credibility, then let's put it under the light of scrutiny.
That's what I'm saying. Like, certain people ain't who they are. It's a caricature. It ain't even like I can see the real, man. Like they're not passing the smell test, man. That's what I'm saying. Like it's not even who you think you arguing with or engaging with.
Yeah, definitely, man. He seems more like a costume, street guy, right? The bandanas and the aluminum foil in your teeth because you can't afford gold fronts. The white tee and all that. So it's all costume. It's all cosmetic, and people are backing it up. But how long can you back up a caricature of this sort of
caricature of manhood?
It's caricature.
The shit is pure prima facie.
And so far, it's worked for Black America for decades. So why would they want to change?
And that is the goddamn truth, Paul.
If we're being intellectually honest, leave the emotional thinking out. I don't deal in the currency of hope. Let's be intellectually honest. It has worked for decades, so why would they want to change now?
And to me, it shows a lack of faith in the future of our community, because people rather believe in a caricature instead of real substance.
Right.
So you're so low that you rather just settle for the caricature because you just don't have any faith in any substance at all. You just don't even want to seek it out.
Yeah, it's the same cats that rode around with those Chrysler 300 C's with the billet grill on it, and they called it a Bentley. And it was like, nah, fam, I know better than that. I'm a car enthusiast. I know way better than that. Can't fool me with that.
They sold a whole lot of them. So
They sold a gang of those.
I think Triple X was one of them.
Oh, yeah.
No, he was. Every time his Fiat broke down, fix it again, Tony.
Fix or repair daily.
Just jokes, Lex. Just jokes. All love, my brother.
But yeah,
don't buy into that, man. Real talk, man. Just don't buy into it, man.
Well, it's
don't
not.
Don't buy into the Chrysler. Don't buy into the Chrysler.
Don't buy it. Don't buy into it, man.
Well, look, no, we're not. It's not a buy-in, right? It's not a buy-in. What it is, we're looking at. This is an actual deep dive into Black pathology, right? We're not buying into a goddamn thing. I mean, look, we stand on our own too, right? Brain Trust stands on what it does, right? So there's no buy-in over here based on what they're talking about. The objective analysis here is what does for all of the rhetoric, what is the actual what's been actually produced out of it, other than a lot of smoke and hot air, right? What's actually produced out of the rhetoric? What's produced out of the emotionalism? What's produced out of this?
No, wait. That's what it is. That's what's produced. Emotional.
And we understand this, but see, the thing is this: we're putting it, we're laying it out here like this, right? So that those that are listening in can really think a little bit more critically about these types of interactions when they're perusing the Black YouTube streets. Right. Oh, this panel and goes the Billy Goat. He's on here. I got to hear what he's got to say. Okay, well, look. Okay, if we actually deep dive into what's actually behind all of it, he ain't saying a goddamn thing. Yes, Billy Goat, I am saying this on this hangout. You're not saying a goddamn thing.
Yo, it's like I heard him. Like Wilding Out. It's like that show Wilding Out.
What's that, Mike?
It's like that show Wilding Out.
No, I heard earlier today with Supreme King Coon. Shout out to SKC. I heard him say something or somebody over there say something to the effect, F your wife, F your kids. And I was blown away that's the type of conversations that are having over there. And it's supposed to be thinking Black men, right? This is supposed to be the representation of masculinity over there. And it's like, I don't know. I'm not really feeling that, man. Where I'm from, man. Cats will pull up on you for saying something like that, man. You start violating people's families and stuff like that, man. That's a whole, different can of worms you're playing with.
Hey, Mike, I have a couple of names for you. Robert Smith, Richard Parsons, Kenneth Cheneau, Reggie Lewis.
Oh, yeah.
Those four men did more to help Black people than a lot of these people who have all these pie in the sky dreams, and a lot more than 99% of these pro-Blacks, pro-wax, pour out the libation for all the dead homies who ain't here, throw your ankhs in the air. And every last one of them had nothing to do with the black box, and every single last one of them only dealt with the best and the brightest, because they understand that idea. We have to come together, kumbaya, my lord. We gotta help each other out. No, you help out the best and the brightest. It's difficult. I understand it is difficult. It is painful. It creates cognitive dissonance. The majority of what you have to work with Black people in America, you have to leave them to their own devices, because the mindsets are self-perpetuating. You can keep telling me about the past this and the system this and the listen, the mindsets now, they're self-perpetuating. You can keep pointing that blame finger all you want. Those mindsets are not going to change. The best and the brightest, you can work with them. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, I was just going to say that when you have two groups of people with differing opinions and political views, and unresolved issues, that leads to a civil war.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're 7 minutes from midnight on actually having something like that. You know, I don't think these people really understand what a civil war really looks like. I know we have a couple of brothers from the continent right now, a part of the Black Brain Trust.
Y'all go ahead.
I think Sauchi is Liberian.
Mm-hmm.
I think Gabe might be Nigerian.
Anti-gravity is he's Somali.
Oh yeah. I think there's another brother in the chat who's from Kenya. I mean, civil wars are bloody, man. They don't just end, you know, in a few hours. And you don't shoot the fair one in some alley or some back hallway, man, and then y'all shake hands and move on, man. That's people get taken out over political differences. And I think this, you know, what we're talking about right here is actually raw differences, different ideologies.
But look, Mike, this is far from political. I'm just saying, let's be honest. We're talking about the actual power. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's when you're gonna probably see the Civil War, when you start seeing the logical thinking Black people making actual progress. That's when it's gonna get attacked.
What does progress look like to you?
Yeah. Progress? What it looks like to me?
Progress ain't coming.
What it look like to me? I feel like it's just gonna be a whole new, like you said, a whole new community that's thriving, and the old community is gonna feel some kind of way about it.
And they're gonna ride up on you in that Datsun, say, "Give me that."
What happens to countries when a crisis happens? Hey, Mike, check this out.
Richard, say that again.
When a crisis happens in a country, what happens? What happens to the intellectual and the people that have funds and are
they
able
leave.
Exactly. The intellectual Blacks here are going to be heading to the continent, whether they want to or not. Even if that ain't even part of their plan right now.
Yeah, but what
that's going to be, it's going to happen by default.
Before you even know it was a crisis, other people already dipped.
Yeah, because if you look at Somalia,
yeah, it's going to be a lot of that too. Of course, that's what I'm saying.
But yeah, that goes into a lot of the arguments against people from quote unquote our community, looking at other communities, examples, and pulling things from their community for their enrichment of our own, whether it be, you know, a positive experience that we can actually incorporate or something negative that we see that we know that we need to avoid for ourselves. Because we will find that as African Americans, we're not an anomaly. You guys just made a great point how you have what's called capital flight. This is the reason why you have so many Chinese here on the West Coast, because they don't have faith in the Chinese economy and currency. So they take their funds elsewhere and invest elsewhere. And thus they take their children who now become part of an American, Chinese American identity. And so when they go back home, they're foreign to the people that stayed there the entire time. And so what you find is that, you know, when Blacks leave the quote unquote community, that's nothing new. And they try to chastise Black people for quote unquote leaving the community, even though Blacks that stay in the community who have achieved a certain level of success on occasion are actually victimized. You know, this is the reason why my parents left the hood. Like I lived in Los Angeles. I lived in Long Beach. My parents moved me 45 miles to Fontana because they said they don't want, because they saw the outcome. And that's the difference. Like when a Complex spoke of how can we quantify what they actually, the rhetoric and doctrine that they preach on these other platforms. Well, you look at the outcomes. If there's not a monetary value that you can associate with their rhetoric, you have to look at what the outcomes are. And so my father saw the outcomes of everybody else in my family, people who have extensive criminal records. I had a cousin who did 24 years in prison. So most of my family on my mother's side has some sort of criminal history. And so my father saw that trajectory and he said, you know what?
Nope.
I have to move him out of here. Because why? It's more harm than good. And see, the thing about this is that because it sounds, it's idyllic to have a sense of community and a sense of togetherness. We all in the same team, and we all black people in a black community. But we've seen what happens when you have a concentration of an African American demographic in a particular geographic location. We've seen the outcomes of that. And especially when you have a concentration of a particular demographic that hasn't been vetted. When you allow each and everybody, this goes back to Paul Bryan point, you have to create your own community where you vet the membership of the people around you. Because you can't have people in your vicinity who's taking from the pot but not contributing. It's just not sustainable.
Well, let me throw a scenario out there and get your guys' take on it. So rather than, right, let's say you have a Civil War type of scenario, right? A black cultural Civil War type of scenario. What are y'all's thoughts on, say, a strategy that would involve, as opposed to flight, utilizing capital resources, because capital could be used as a weapon. It could be weaponized. In contrast to what some others think, based on their interpretation of the definition of weaponized.
Okay.
Capital could be weaponized. So what would be the thoughts on gentrification?
No, see, okay. Now, when you say weaponized,
I say go to the rural areas, gentrify the white rural areas, because they leaving anyway for the cities.
I think what Complex is saying is that.
Go ahead, Triz.
Again, like this is my point when I talked about Nipsey Hussle's downfall. When you treat things like a business and stop saying, "Oh, we black, I'm black, my mama black, everybody black." No. This is a business.
Thank you.
And so just like I would raise rents if I was in any other community, guess what? According to the actual inflation, these are the going rates for rent. If you rent from me, this is the price you pay. If you can't afford it, then you have to move elsewhere. It's just that simple, because I'm trying to conduct the business. Now, if you want to be in a position where you can't be ousted from your territory or your home, your native land, well, then you need to invest in your community too. See, people are not investing in their community. That's the reason why they're able to be gentrified.
Gentrification is not a bad thing.
Property, and then nobody can make you leave when you buy the property there.
I'll tell you what I do. I got two.
Bad thing. The cream will always rise to the top, and you propagate what rises to the top.
Paul, if you don't gentrify it, who will?
Exactly.
You already know who will.
So why not? So why not multiply like gremlins, but in a good way? Gentrification is not a bad thing. The cream will always rise to the top, and then you create an entirely new culture that is successful and competitive and on the same socioeconomic strata as who we all know occupies that highest rung.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Tyson.
Let me tell you what I did, Paul. I bought 3 vacant lots, and I just been like trying to pick up these cheap lots. You know what I'm saying? And to be honest, I'm waiting for the white people to come through it before I sell it.
Why you say that?
Well, because if I build something there, right, I'm not gonna be able to get what I can get out of it with everything that's around it.
Okay.
Well, listen.
Worse yet, Ty City, you build something there, and then you have to worry about. Well, I'm gonna give you an example. I have a cousin who lives in Michigan, right? And so I was contemplating purchasing some real estate in Michigan back when the real estate was dirt cheap, right? And in Detroit specifically. And so my cousin was like, "Well, you can't just come over here and buy property and expect to make a profit, because the minute you start doing renovations, number one, you're gonna come back, all your copper wiring is gonna be copper pipes and everything is gonna be taken out the walls.
Yeah,
Your water heater is going to be taken. Your
Catalytic converter we missing.
You know what they're doing? You know what they're doing? You know what they're doing? They're taking the actual, I think it's the electric or the gas meters, because there's some type of copper inside of there. So you come back, your entire meter's missing. Like, this is the type of stuff. So
that's what I'm saying. It's comical when people say buy back the hood, invest in the hood, but it sounds good, but it's like, unless you finna go do 3 blocks at a time where you could like make a subdivision or something pop off, like, man, good luck.
But that's not
they're taking the meat. Super Trees, you said they're taking the meters off the side of a house?
They're taking, in Detroit, they take the meters, the entire, a matter of fact, my cousin said they're putting GPSs in the meters now.
Water
because
or gas
people,
meters?
I don't know if it's the water or like the meter that's on the side. I'm not sure if it's the water or the gas
or power.
One of the meters, one of those meters has some type of copper in it, and a high amount of copper. So people take it and they sell it for scrap metal. And what's even worse,
that's off
is
the meter.
The companies that's accepting the actual meter. That's bad enough. The companies, the scrap yards that's accepting it, but then you got people who are taking the entire meter, taking the water heater,
the gutters. They take the aluminum gutters,
taking everything.
Well, yo, I got 3 vacant lots, and I pay like $200 a piece on taxes. And if I build something, I'm gonna have to pay taxes on it. That's gonna eat into my profit margin. So I just hold on to the D's, man.
Dude,
I'm just not convinced business alone is going to change the neighborhood. Like, I'm all about infrastructure. That's why I'm like, go to the rural areas where it's more of I'm on the African plan. But if y'all want to just talk about doing something here, you got to go to the rural areas where you can start off from scratch.
Well, the thing about the rural areas is that there's so much, because there's no infrastructure, there's a lot of work to be put in when there's already infrastructure here. And I think this goes back to what Complex is saying. If you approach,
they don't need infrastructure. They need to get on. They need to do agriculture.
But see, we're not worried about what they need. See, what Complex is saying, and I concur, is that you have to approach the quote unquote community as a foreigner. You go in there with your business.
It's a blank canvas.
Like almost like say for instance, you pretend like you're Korean. Open up a hair shop. And if they get out of line, you beat them up like the Koreans beat them. Get out my shop.
That's just benefiting. I mean, that's just benefiting you. I don't think that's going to actually make any.
Hey, you gonna have more business next week.
Hold on, what we're going to say that, Richard?
No, but see, that's what I'm saying. Like you're not necessarily trying to benefit the entirety of the community, because the people that actually are worth saving will come to you and say, hey, what can I do to be on to get in your stratosphere? The other people, they're too busy trying to be consumers. They're not thinking about their trajectory as far as what they're doing now. How can it sustain them? So we're not worried. Like this is what Paul Bryan is saying. You can't save everybody. So what you do is you empower yourself, so that way when you do encounter somebody worth saving, you have the capital to invest in them.
Exactly, because
my uncle tried that. He had a Boost Mobile shop, and he got shot in the shoulder in front of my little cousins.
Bro, it's the mindset.
Selling Boost Mobile?
Yeah, I'm saying he had a cell phone store. He had the Boost Mobile store.
He got boosters for. I'm sorry, Mike.
No, yeah, Paul, you're terrible. Yeah, you're terrible.
They came in there. You listening too hard. Listen, they came in there to rob my uncle. He opened up a Boost Mobile store.
Did he have some kind of bulletproof glass in there, or it was just an open layout?
Regular.
Why would he have bulletproof glass? I mean, they went in there acting like they was going to buy something.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, bulletproof glass wouldn't help. I mean,
well, in some instances it does. I mean, that's why you see a lot of banks use it. But
I'm saying
the point that I was making,
stores don't have. They're not behind the glass.
Right,
it's always wide open.
It's open. There's like open displays. The phones are out. You can hold them, look at them. There's a little placard.
Yeah, it's not. They're never set up like that.
Yeah.
Which comes back to mindset, bro. It's mindset. At the end of the day, we're dealing with human capital, right? You have to approach it as a business. Capital, assets, depreciating assets, value added assets, and consumables. So your human assets, it's the mindsets. So whether you go into the most rural areas possible, one, like Suphatra said, you need infrastructure. So you're wasting time and money building infrastructure. Agriculture is great, that's fine, but you know what? We're in the fourth industrial revolution now. It's about infrastructure. But your human assets, your human capital, if their mindsets are not where you need them to be, they're useless to you. So they're no longer capital. They are nothing but consumables. They are a depreciating asset.
You need to come in. You need to come in with a strong arm, like Idi Amin or something like that, man.
Wow.
I mean, you really, yeah, you really just need to come in there and with a iron fist, man, and say, get down and lay down, man.
And let's talk about the agriculture piece for just a second, because I was at Mike. I think it was like maybe 3 weeks ago. We did the guerrilla farming podcast, okay, and we talked about converting vacant lots into agriculture spaces, right? This falls in line with the fourth industrial infrastructure. How farming and agriculture, even in city environments, with the vacant lots. I mean, okay, because look, in these areas, there's shit tons of vacant lots. So what to do with a vacant lot that's just sitting there with nothing going on? You grow some shit.
And there's actually a tax incentive. There's a tax incentive to actually get one that purpose. We talked about that. We talked about that.
Yep.
That's a you put a greenhouse on there and you start producing some serious material off of it. So
right.
I mean, there's a variety of things you can do. And it's a staple within the community itself. So I agree with Richard, man, that infrastructure is important, but there's already public infrastructure in most of these neighborhoods, your libraries, your public schools, and so on and so forth. So how do you leverage the existing infrastructure for what you need rather than to invest more into the
But look, hey, when I throw out the word infrastructure.
Hold on, go Richard.
When I throw out the word infrastructure, okay, that's just one word. But you got to take into account, all right, who's in control of the infrastructure. Like, our people don't feel they're in control. Yeah, like you say, it's the mindset and the culture. We don't feel like this infrastructure is ours.
Because we're not on the ground. I mean, at least from the conversations that we're having, we're not on the ground. We have to go in there as a brigade and just basically take no shorts, man, and
buy
stop
shit
playing
up.
games.
So we finna go in there.
Not just buy.
We finna mob up. I'm all about mobbing up.
No, man. Understand what I'm saying. I'm saying you have to go in there as a political organization, and you got to be strapped up because there will be some pushback, and that's just the nature of it. But most of us here are pretty physically fit to defend ourselves individually and as a group. So I don't see why we have to actually negotiate with anybody. Come in there and lay out the blueprint. See, I think a lot of the time in some of the city council meetings I have gone to, I think a lot of the time is that Black people come with empty hands, man. You got to come in there with a full portfolio and say, this is what it's going to be. And so they have to push back against what you have rather than to not listen to you at all because you didn't have anything to begin with.
Can you please repeat that, Mike?
They have to come with a consortium that has that has countering proposals, business plans, you know what I mean, financing lined up, all that type of shit. Like if you're not even talking in that realm, then you ripe to be removed if you don't act right. Bottom line.
How many times have I said exactly that? How many times have I said exactly that? And I got so much resistance, so much hate. It is what it is, gentlemen. Approach it like a business. Nothing matters but money on the table. Nothing.
And that's the reason why an existing infrastructure is so important, because not only do we have a aggregation of individuals with capital to spend, we see by statistics that constituency is actually spending it. So what you want to do is be able to tap into that consumerism, right? And you already have that existing infrastructure in, tap into it. And like Mike V said, you know, you have to have a plan in place and contingencies in place, but the rewards are far too great to ignore the potential rewards. You know, if things are done, if the plan is executed correctly, you know, and as I was saying, and kind of actually agreeing with Complex, you have to have an actual business oriented mind. You can't, you know, understand that everybody that looks like you is not your people, right?
Yeah.
They're not willing to make the sacrifices you're willing to make. You know, they're not willing to put forth the hard work and sweat equity that you're willing to put in. So you can't, it's either, okay, you're either going to be the consumer, or you're going to be the retailer, one of the two, or producer. You're going to be on one end of the spectrum. Either you're the one buying or you're the one selling. I want to be the one selling.
Or, or we can build a actual financial investment group. You know, I wasn't it Jay Morrison that did the
REIT.
Tulsa Real Estate Fund.
Yep.
Yeah, the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. So stuff like that, man, has to be put on the table first. You can't just show.
It's not a REIT though. It's not a REIT though. It's a little bit different because it's not publicly traded. It's a little bit different.
It's privately done,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I mean, it's still an initiative, right? He still put together an initiative. And I think what happens with a lot of these Black people in these areas, man, they have these pie in the sky ideas, and it's always based on the struggle, right? It's always these sort of short-sighted, short-term sort of perspective that says, yeah, go ahead.
Which is what
I wanna give you a
ADOS
quick
is.
example of that.
It's
I wanna give you a
emotional
quick
based on
example of
struggle.
Go ahead, Super Joe.
Like I was on Facebook, and they had this shake and bake advertisement for like a franchise, and the franchise was $10,000, and then people was like, oh, all we got to do is save up $1,000. First of all, if you got to save up $1,000, you're already too far behind anyway. Like, you should be able to just go into your pocket and get $1,000. That's number one. But number two, all we got to do is have 10 people save up $1,000, and we can have a franchise. And I'm like, whoa. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Do you guys understand what a franchise means? That means you actually purchase the rights to that actual entity. So that way, you can share marketing costs with other business owners like you. That's basically what a franchise is. You share marketing costs, but you still got to buy the building. You still got to buy the equipment. You still got to make payroll. Like, and payroll, you got to have financing to get payroll, because you're not gonna make payroll out of your pocket. You got to have
unless they use Cash App.
And this is what I'm saying. Like people are so like again, this is this whimsical, idyllic, and a lot of this, like a lot of the rhetoric that we hear, I can hear the feminine undertones, because it's not based on logic and reasoning. It's based on emotional and feel good. Yeah, it feels real good. I like to feel good too, but I understand that logic will always prevail.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting that you brought up the franchises, because most, if not all, of your franchises are actually discounted for Black people. If you ever look into it, it's actually discounted. You don't pay the full rate. I think for minorities, but mostly Black people are really who they were targeting when they did this. And I think a McDonald's franchise is something like $125K bare minimum, but you have to buy at least 10 going in. So I think a full price of like a McDonald's is like $250K just from starting out at $125K. It's actually pretty good. So that's something to put on the table in terms of franchising. But I mean, you already got what is that, Five Guys? Didn't the brother start that?
And you know what? And that's something to think about. Just like the way when you just said the franchise that you have to buy 10 of them. Like, see me, I think a lot, and I think too much probably. But the minute you said, I said, well, why do you got to buy 10? Well, it makes sense, because as a franchise, if you buy one franchise, right, or you purchase rights for one franchise, right, franchise extension, chances are that business is going to be run different from every other business, every other McDonald's. But if you have 10, you have to have a system in place to have some sort of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have to kind of, you can't be an individual, because it's McDonald's. You don't want to have a rogue McDonald's that's doing stuff that kind of jeopardizes the other McDonald's in the area.
You have to lock down the zip code. Yeah, you have to lock down the zip code from any other competition. That's what they want.
And then you have a consistency.
And then you were making mention of payroll and about the ongoing continual monthly expenses. So now, when you purchase a franchise, it's no different from starting up any other business. Do you have enough capital to cover your operating expenses for 3 to 6 months going in? See, so these are things that Black people with these pie in the sky ideals have no clue what they're talking about. Do you have enough money to, once you buy the business, once you buy the location, once you buy all of your consumables, or once you buy all your assets, so now your shingle is out and your door is open, do you now have enough resources to meet payroll and cover all ongoing expenses for 3 to 6 months?
Okay,
I actually brought up McDonald's for a reason, but not all franchises have that stipulation of owning 10. You can only I think the bare minimum is like 2. So for the person I know that owns the McDonald's franchise and the Dunkin' Donuts franchises, they pull in $5,000 a day just off of one location. $5,000 a day.
But Mike, the other thing we also have to look at too is that even though the revenue from fast food franchises, it brings in a lot of money. What it also does is it devalues the properties around it. You see, so if we were actually strategizing and looking at like taking over a damn community or whatever, like I wouldn't put a McDonald's in some places. I would put like some
Panera
places,
Bread.
Yeah, places. There you go. Places that have higher quality food that actually are more consummate of a community that has higher property values, because what that then does is it actually does raise up the property values around it. Because when you think about it,
go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
No. Hey, D, what's going on, man? Go ahead, chime in.
Shalom.
I was going to say that your idea is good that you can't put it in your neighborhood, but if you see what a lot of the wealthy communities do, is that the community is built in a location where they have a blended business district.
Yes.
When you walk into this district, it looks almost like it's almost like you drive by there, you will miss it because you think it's somebody's house. Mm-hmm. And if we can build that kind of community, and you can't don't expect one person. Yes, some wealthy people with knowledge, they should be the leaders of this thing because they already have the business sense. But if you can create, say, a real estate trust, I'm going to use the real estate trust as an example. 15 brothers, 20 brothers, 30 brothers, you sign a contract saying, look, I'm going to put in this much money. I've got $500,000, so I'm going to put in 50,000, and this is money that I can write off as taxes if I lose it. But we got business people running this thing that more than likely I'm going to make a profit. So we collect a couple of $1 billion, and we're going to invest this across a number of businesses, whether it be gas stations, because Black people, McDonald's, as Mike suggested, any kind of business that Black people frequent, not even only Black people, just people in general frequent. And we build this out and start building it out. It's like you start out in New York City, and then in 5 years, you put up a franchise here, franchise there, franchise there, franchise there. We can do this. The other day we had a conversation about, can the Black community be saved? And if we really want to save it and we go through that process, we can do it. And we spend so much money on junk. And if we can come together and say, look, you signed this contract, you put in so much money, we got this person going to run the thing. We approach the people and say, look, we're going to do this. We want so. And you don't depend on this emotional thing. One person, when somebody gets hurt, You get the whole crowd rushing out to say, yeah, we're going to protest. You can't do that. You got to have, if you see a country when it's working properly, if you see like the Chinese or somebody, they have a man who is a point man for the politics, a man who is point man for the business, a man who's a lawyer. Everybody's in there discussing what we're going to do, how we're going to make the next move. And that's how we have to go about this. We
And they
can't
have
go
their own
about this
banking.
no
They have their
willy-nilly.
I was just gonna say they have their own banking system, which is Cathay Pacific, and it's almost in every Chinese Chinatown across America. There's a Cathay Pacific.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? Somebody was talking about infrastructure.
Richard,
I was looking at a property that was this was like a couple days ago in a city called Ranger, Texas, and I started looking at pictures of the property, and it was dirt cheap. And I'm looking at it on Google Maps, and I started looking around it, and it had like bigger buildings, and it had storefronts, and all this stuff was laid out. And I called the realtor, and I talked to him about the property, and I asked him about the city, and he was telling me that the city is pretty much like an abandoned oil town from the oil boom from the 20s, and it's a whole string of cities like that, and they already have like theaters, they already have downtown squares, and they already have all this stuff, but everybody left these boom towns, and all of these buildings, they look like they got good bones to them to be like redone and renovated. But I'm looking out towards going further out also.
you have to make sure that you get a building inspector that can actually determine whether or not it can be condemned, or if it's been blighted, if it should be listed as blighted. Because once you buy it, then the city will come in and then say, oh well, this property, you can't. They won't permit you to do anything with it. They'll just make you hold on to it. And that's what happens in most predominantly Black neighborhoods. Why a lot of the lots remain vacant, because the city denies a permit to actually let you build on it, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that I think that might be like a option too.
No, there's a whole lot of. I mean, we've talked about this for the last year and a half on this channel. I mean, and we was on other channels trying to promote the same exact thing. I talked about back in 2017. I said we should get into military contracting, in terms of exporting these vehicles, these MRAPs and things like that to Africa, because they were having problems with their military hardware being decrepit and very poor, coming from the Chinese. It was cheap Chinese built hardware that wasn't working. And I said, we can do the same thing with a Ford F-550 chassis. They sell the chassis bare bones. All you got to do is slap all your hardware on it, and now you have an MRAP.
Hey, Mike, Mike, it's very funny that you say that, because years ago, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin, I was working at I did what's called a shutdown. So the factory that builds those MRAPs, I was there doing some welding during a three-week factory shutdown. And bro, exactly what you just said is how those things are built. It is a basic box and ladder chassis. The military drops off the equipment that they need and they want, and they just slap it on. Boom.
And they sell them for $250,000 a pop.
Yes, sir.
To law enforcement.
Damn.
And Lenco, I mean, you can buy the bare bone chassis for like $40,000 or something like that from Ford. But Lenco is the biggest supplier of that, and Lenco is in Springfield, Massachusetts, of suppliers of law enforcement MRAPs, and they're selling their stuff at $150 starting out. So I bring all that up because I think that there was an opportunity back then when I brought up in 2017 on someone else's panel. I said, this is stuff that we can actually get into. All these guys who was in the military, I mean, the vehicles better than we would. I mean, I'm an IT person. I have absolutely no problem whipping up some code, for automation of the vehicle. All types of drones that could be attached to it. There's all types of ways we could actually get involved in this and actually turn the market to ourselves. And a lot of these guys were like, I don't think that's a good deal. I think we should open up barbershops. Nigga.
And there is that street mentality once again. And see, this comes back to something that street mentality. So when you are within the black culture and black society in America, that street mentality is celebrated and it is propagated because, again, if we're being intellectually honest, that is the majority of the mindsets. If we're being intellectually honest, that is the majority of the mindsets. So individuals like ourselves who are on this panel right now, who speak the way that we do and converse on the topics that we do and can elevate our thinking, right? We're not looked upon in a favorable light, which brings me back to what I keep saying. Work with and focus on the best and the brightest, the few, and propagate them as a new society. Their mindsets can be elevated. Their thinking can be elevated. What you have now for the vast majority of current Black America, leave them to their devices. They can't be saved. All of these ideas and projects and propositions that have been put forth, those are the individuals who can bring them into reality to create this higher socioeconomic strata of a new Black American culture.
But Paul, you got to look at something. The United States as a country has been pushing this idea of comfort from after World War II. World War II, you saw companies come out advertising, you can have this car, this luxury car that you can cruise down the highway, you and your family. The kitchen was remodeled to make cookers and washing machines and all this. They have houses in the suburbs. So now we're looking at luxury. Even the person who grew up in the hood with nothing, he wants the easiest thing to do. Barbershop is where he feels comfortable. That's his comfort zone. He can't go outside that comfort zone. That's why he never leave the peak. Born on that block when his mother brought him home from wherever to that block as a baby. His school is down the street, and he wouldn't even go to college because it's off the block. So he get used to that. So his mentality is formed right on that block and it stays there. Barbershop is the place where everybody go, or the stoop.
Exactly.
And that's the problem with us, most of us today. Even the people on YouTube, what do? They don't go to places where they get challenged. They go to places where people accept their stupid rhetoric. They will come and say, well, let me talk to the Black Brain Trust or somebody who challenges them, They go to the place that they can do stupidity and it's accepted.
Yeah, I agree with you. But the objective here is to push Black men, right or wrong, into the direction of progress. And I think what happens here is, like you said, they get complacent, and a barbershop is the only thing that they can actually think of because it's low hanging fruit for them. And for the most part, that's the highest that they could actually think of achievement, is a barbershop. And I told you all before, and I spoke about this on the Black Brain Trust before. I went to a financial investment meeting here locally, and they brought in all the Black and brown people for the most part, and one of the bankers, I forget what they call him, a growth investor from a bank, said no more barbershops and hair salons. Enough of that. No nail shops, none of that. They want real, tangible, high growth businesses that's going to have a high return on investment for the bank, or else they're not going to fund it. And they say one of the things they said is that sometimes Black men's credit score is so jacked up that they get denied credit without some kind of cosigner behind it. And a lot of the credit score being jacked up has to do with people's moms using their first and last name and social security to open up Comcast and Verizon you know, when they were younger, so their credit is all jacked up, and nobody ever wants to address that part, man. You know, the people who are behind all the failings that's going on.
You
So,
know, Mike. You several months back, you had what was, in my opinion, an absolutely brilliant idea. You told me that up there in Boston, you went to a community meeting, and I think you asked a question, or someone else asked a question. The they have the city was investing millions of dollars renovating, excuse me, renovating dilapidated parks and playgrounds. So I don't know if it was you or someone else who said, asked the question, instead of spending millions renovating parks and playgrounds, putting up new hoops, why not build STEM centers for the youth?
yeah, I brought that up. I brought that up to them, and when I heard how much money was being spent on it, I was blown away, and you know, he was blown away as well, because he didn't understand how they invested all this money into these playgrounds, but they left them non-functional. They never serviced them. So all the water fountains, you know, they had piss in it. They were never cleaned out. The sprinklers, you know, they had, you know, so many blunt wrappings and stuff like that, blocking up
Or
the yeah, um, and things like that. You know, there's graffiti on the slides and stuff like that. So the city never even bothered to fix it. So he opened up a ticket, because that's the proper process. You have to open up a ticket.
right.
And they said it took them 6 months just to get to it. Whereas on the other side of town, the white playgrounds, they you open up a ticket, and by the next morning it's being serviced.
No,
So
you know,
what's happening here is city management, because it's not city council members that have anything to do with this. The city manager, the fiduciary, is somehow approving of these contracts to build these playgrounds. But who's actually the company, the private contractor that's actually going out there and well, not the private contractor, but the union that's behind building these playgrounds, right? So they spend the 10, $11 million on this playground, and then they never service it. But you know, what's the point? Somebody had to get paid off of this. So what I was saying to them was that rather than spend all this money on a playground that doesn't even get utilized, um, you know, you should be building up the infrastructure in terms of small buildings and stuff like that that can actually foster coding and robotics and autonomous vehicles and drones and things like that. You say, yeah, I agree with that, but you know, you have a city manager who's involved in improving that process, and a lot of times they deny it. So we have to get people, in position, from a political standpoint, political organization that can actually put pressure on the city manager to say, hey, you know, this is what we have from a portfolio on what we want done, and you're gonna do it. And if not, somebody's gonna be sitting outside your house. Because
well,
at one point in Boston, man, about a year or so ago, man, they ran the mayor out of his own house, man. They showed up. People showed up.
but see now, Mike, that is a brilliant segue into the lack of, excuse me, the lack of black political power in America, because the congressional black caucus does absolutely nothing. So say what people want about President Trump. He was 100% accurate about Elijah Cummings. Baltimore is his district, and look at what that place is. So my point that I'm making here is, when you look at a neighborhood of a certain phenotype, politicians go to the political center. They go to the recreation center. They go to the community center. They go to the local Kiwanis or the Elks, or where Knights of Columbus. When it comes to black neighborhoods, they wait until 1 week before election. They go to the pulpit at the church. They give the good Reverend Pastor the collection plate his envelope, and then they go on about their business. So
but
black people, for some reason, every other group in this country Understand that you buy your politicians. Okay. Even Spanish speaking peoples have come into this country and they realize you buy your politicians. For some reason, Black people refuse to understand that. Keep talking about we have to hold their feet to the fire. No, you buy your politicians and then you get what you want.
Hey, here's a I just kind of Googled this, but this is what Super Trish is kind of referring to with franchises, but Meineke car care centers. So cash required is 110K, minority focus. So this has already been discounted. I think a Meineke is something like 200 grand or something like that, 180 grand. So it's already been discounted down to 110. But that's just an example of what I was referring to, or what Super Trish was referring to in terms of franchising. That's the cost.
Hey, Paul, to add on what you were saying about Baltimore, they sent Ben Carson out there, and the preacher ran him off. And that's the head of housing or urban development, like somebody who could actually help them.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the preacher, of course, he will run him off because you have to look at the trajectory of his doctrine versus somebody like Ben Carson, right? Because
that's what I'm saying.
They're speaking on a doctrine. They're speaking on a doctrine of hope, right? And what ifs, as opposed to a tried and true method of economic growth and stability. So there's going to be a distinct difference in what the guy in the pulpit is saying versus the guest speaker. And so there's going to be a contradiction to his message. So of course he wouldn't want him there.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, you get an actual politician on that level who you can actually sit at the table with, come up with something, and you can actually hold him accountable for actually forcing a change. You know what I'm saying? But you got a preacher who's been in that community for God knows how long and has taken so much out of it. And now if people start seeing that the political power is actually where it's at, it's going to threaten your well-being and people are going to question you. But that's the stronghold that preachers and things of that nature have with the hopium mentality.
Here's one for complex right here. Cannabis store Amsterdam, 24,000 minimum cash required for cannabis franchise.
Nice.
Ironic, right?
You know what, Mike? There was something when I first jumped onto this stream and I was listening to excuse me, I was listening to the way the conversation was going. Do you remember the movie Menace to Society?
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, at the time when I was young, when that movie came out, I was somewhere in my 20s, 21, 22 when that movie came out, maybe, I don't know, 2021. Anyway, point is, I loved it. I thought it was great. Old Dog was the man. I loved it. Years later, honestly now, I can't even watch it. I refuse to watch it. The reason why I bring that up, that mentality and that mindset is celebrated in Black American culture. It's celebrated. But now see, anything like, say, the individuals who were in the movie Love Jones, or like the character that Damon Wayans portrayed in the movie Bamboozled. All right, individuals like that, they get attacked. They get looked down upon. You know what? When the Cosby Show was the #1 show in America for years, and I grew up with the Cosby Show in the 80s, it was Black people who were complaining it's unrealistic. That's not real. That's not real Black America. That's a fairy tale. And Bill Cosby was like, yeah, but you know what? There are Black people who live the way that I'm portraying it in this show, and that needs to be highlighted. And do you know who again, it was Black people who had the most resistance when that show came on the air in 1984.
They still have the resistance now. This is what I was talking about. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, that another YouTube platform was basically speaking specifically on the Cosby Show, and there was that particular platform, and there was a guest speaker on that platform, and his argument was that that the Cosby Show was good for the community, but that the host of that platform was saying that that again, just like Paul Bryan was saying, that it wasn't realistic, and at that time everybody was on crack and it's that and the third, and I'm like, well, when we look at shows like Power, is that a realistic portrayal? How many people who dilly and dally in that lifestyle actually transcend their surroundings and become in a position where the star of that show is in, where they actually own a nightclub and actually wear suits on a daily basis? It's a very, very, very extremely small percentage. Even when you look at shows like what's it, Love and Hip Hop, and things like that, these reality TV shows, how many people are actually in a position like that? Those are not realistic portrayals, but yet those shows are celebrated. Those shows are celebrated. But see, that's because of the mentality of the individuals in those shows and their demeanor, the way they conduct themselves, because that seems to be a reflection of quote unquote Black culture. But somebody speaking with a mere modicum of intelligence, someone who actually wears pants around their waist, and someone who somebody who has a dynamic with their children that isn't filled with expletives and look how hard my son is. Yeah, exactly, and so that argument is therefore debunked. I think that if we're going to have any imagery that, let's just say it is unrealistic, at least it's unrealistic in a direction that we should be going. How about that?
I refuse to watch Power, and I swear on my daughter's life, on my firstborn's life, I have not watched 5 minutes of that show. I refuse to consume that type of content.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do a lot of boycotting of those sort of programs on this channel. We just don't. We're not supporting that.
And I did not go see this new Superfly movie. I don't watch Love and Skip Hop or Real Housewives or Shitlanta. I don't consume any of that nonsense. None of it.
Because
it is funny to me how many Black people who call themselves pro-Black and they diligently watch every single one of those programs. How does that work?
Well, I mean, it's not just that they're watching it, yeah, that, I mean, it is programming, so it can to a certain extent program you, especially if you have a child who has an impressionable mind. But the fact is that they don't even just view it as entertainment. They actually mesmerized by it, and think that this is how Black people should be conducting themselves. This is how you are if you're from that culture, and it's really sad, And I just want to take a little tangent because I don't know if you noticed, Mike V was showing that franchise website, and with the franchise, it's a similar concept. The individual, I don't know who it was that was talking about, going to a rural area and perhaps even to the continent and starting something up from scratch. Yep. But the benefit of infrastructure, and to a certain extent a franchise is like infrastructure. You already have the brand cachet established, you already have a marketing campaign in place, and you already have connections as far as depending on what you do, there's going to have to be some sort of supply chain, and that's already been established. So that's the benefit of purchasing a franchise as opposed to starting your own company from the ground up, because you have to establish your reputation. Like people who drive past and they see a recognizable name, automatically they're going to go to the name, like, oh, well, I know that place. And so there's already an association with that particular franchise. Hopefully it's a good association. And, you already can generate business without having to spend a lot of money, because that's what makes a lot of small businesses fail, because they have to spend so much money on marketing. So if you buy some land like in a rural area, what's going to be the compelling factor for people outside of that particular community to come in? Because That's what you want for a community to thrive, because you need a capital influx, right? So you need people to come into your community and spend, right? Spend their money and get the heck out of your community. That's what you really want. I mean, let's just be honest. Come in there, spend the money, and go home, right? And do you want to be able to keep that money in the community, and the money that you generate there, you want to make sure the money you spend is within the community, but the money you take in is from outside the community.
Yeah, but that only works if the businesses within a Black neighborhood are actually owned by Black people, and Black people don't own the businesses in their own neighborhoods. Okay, so if you do not own the businesses in your neighborhood, all that economic talk, it is hot air. And I'm not directing that comment towards you. I'm directing that towards all these throw the ankh in the air, pro-wax, kumbaya, my lord types. If you do not own the businesses in your Black neighborhood, if they're not owned by Black people who live in that neighborhood, nothing is going to change. But in order to own those businesses, it has to start with what? The mindset to want to do so.
Hey, I say to anybody who looking forward to doing that, good luck.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I do business where I do business. But
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Is that Ty City that was saying that? Good luck.
Good luck.
Yeah. Well, Ty City, here's the thing. If you approach it like a foreigner and not like a member of the community, then you'll fare a whole lot better, because you'll have an actual business standpoint. Like you're not accepting any credit. I'll pay you tomorrow, or none of that 5-figure discount. None of that 5-figure discount nonsense. Really. You got. No, but hold on for a second, because think about it, right? How are other groups able to come in a community and thrive and flourish? How are they able to do it?
To be honest with you, Super Triz, they don't pay taxes.
That's
been what I found out. That's what I found out recently, that they're not paying their taxes. The IRS actually came around here and shut down several of these businesses for not paying their taxes. They came in there full force too.
But let me tell you, Super Triz,
Mike, all they had to do was just hit the city government off with a whole boatload of some beta male coins, and they went right as rain.
This dude. Ty City says, "Good luck, man." That's what I said to that cat, man, who had that rotary, man, right from the light.
Oh, man, don't do it like that, man. No, but I was open. I was doing cash deals, and you know what I'm saying? Like, they broke the whole. Like, I had a little swing gate right there, and they broke the gate. And just set like 3 cars on fire for no reason. I'm like, what the? I just say I couldn't do it no more, man. Broke the windows out of the main building. I was already in the hole already.
You had beef with somebody?
No, I wasn't beefing with nobody. I did good business.
What block you from?
This was in South Dallas. No, trust me. I wasn't playing no games with nobody. It wasn't no goofy shit like that. It's just I had set it up. You know what I'm saying? I read up.
Management.
Do what? But see,
homeboy management.
Look at it from this perspective, right? I'm here in Seattle, right? And right on Broadway, right by my job, there's an actual QFC, which is like more kind of upscale type grocery store, And so, anyways, it's like a step up from say Safeway or something like that, right? And so they had closed the grocery store, because grocery store used to be open 24 hours, right? And this area over here is not a cheap area; it's a very expensive area in Seattle, right? And so they closed the grocery store from between the hours of 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. And so when it used to be open 24 hours, I'm like, man, that's inconvenient, because if I'm at work at night and I want to go get something, I gotta go there early, and try to take my lunch early to go get something out of there. And so then I went there one night, and then I quickly saw the reason why. Because out front, it was nothing but vagrants and riffraff hanging out in front of the store. Like, obviously the vagrants who are homeless, I mean, where they're gonna go. But then you have riffraffs who are not homeless. They're just hanging out in front of the store. And so now then one of my coworkers like, well, she only goes there like if somebody is going with her. So now that's interfering with business, because somebody who can only go there if they have somebody to accompany them to that location, that's going to disrupt the ability for that particular location to generate revenue. And then once I got inside, I see somebody inside go in the back, grab 2 liquor bottles, and walk right out. I'm looking at him like, wait a minute, where's he going with those? He just walk right out the front door.
Wow.
Stealing. And so this is the problem, is that when you try to do stuff inside the community, and this goes to what Ty City is saying, good luck, because now you have to account, either the losses you take or employing loss prevention, one of the two, an additional. So like people say, well, why is QFC so expensive? Oh, I see why QFC is so expensive, because they got to cover people who are taking stuff out of there and not paying for it. People who are stealing bags, like the little, you got to pay for bags in Seattle, right? So if you like the bag of groceries, you got to pay for a bag. People stealing bags. So like I'm looking at them at the register, and it tells you like at night you got a self checkout, and so it says how many bags are you buying? People put 0. I see them put 0. They grab 5, 6 bags, And so it's like, this is what I'm talking about, and this is not just us. This is just anybody. So like what I'm saying is that, again, we even see that in other communities, everybody can't be saved, because it's not just people that look like us that are causing problems for businesses. It's anybody who doesn't value hard work and sacrifice and wants to take the easy route. That's going to be a problem for your business.
Well, they had to take out the automated machines. The automated cashier machines from CVS, because these opioid addicts, man, will come in there, use the machine to buy like, a pack of gum or something like that, or some Altoids, and they will get cash back out of it, right? So $5, $10, $15, $20 out of it. And they will use that cash to go out and buy more dope.
Really?
Yeah. So they took the machines out for that very reason.
Wow.
Man,
do you remember, I want to say it was 2018 or 2017, when when it seemed like every other day we were seeing videos of black women getting attacked in all these weave shops by Asians. Now, if we look back, in 10 out of every 10 instances, they were stealing something. So they brought that smoke on themselves. Just throwing it out there.
Man, I'm talking about, you know what? I when I first opened the thing, they stole the damn tailgates off 3 trucks. Then I had to I had to replace the tailgates off the trucks. Cool. I chalked that up as a loss. But then when they set the cars on fire, broke the gate, and then broke the windows out the main building, like I was under. That was it. I didn't really even get it to no real good no good profit, because I had to fix and repair stuff. Like I said, I couldn't get the insurance because the insurance was so high, nobody wouldn't even insure me for what I needed.
You should have had Honda Civics on the lot. You would have been straight.
Yeah.
With rotary motors in them.
No, I mean, I've heard of these type sort of businesses being vandalized. It's people don't respect it if it's not, a major franchise like Herb Chambers, something like that, mega moguls. But even those, man, I'm starting to hear, people breaking into the lots and stealing the alloy wheels off of new Honda Civics and stuff like that, leaving them on cinder blocks. So really gutsy move.
Yeah, man. Good luck.
But we got MOT on the panel, man. What's going on, fam? Oh, I think he's asleep now.
Yo, and my other friend, he had some houses, and he was taking Section 8, and one by one. They start tearing his houses up one by one, dog.
Yeah, because they don't have to pay for it. They're paying $10 a month. My boy, my boy had one of those, man. He had several of these houses, man.
Never,
He had
ever.
he had to he had to evict. He had to evict these people out, man, because they were tearing his house apart, man. The plumbing was all backed up. There was condoms. There was broken condoms. There were broken condom pieces in the sink, in the plumbing in the sink.
It is 10 times harder trying to evict Section 8 tenants than it is to try to evict regular tenants.
Yeah, I mean, man. If you watch like the X-Men movie that had like the Juggernaut in it, and how the Juggernaut was running through walls trying to catch Kitty Pryde, like this is the type of shit you walk into whenever you try to reclaim one of your fucking Section 8 houses from these fucking reptiles, man.
Exactly.
The whole garage door was missing off his shit, man.
Oh no.
Which is why you do not deal with these people, bro. Which is why when it comes to rental properties, you heard me say this before.
What you do with the garage door,
rental properties are not in black neighborhoods. Stealing the garage doors, I don't
I'm sorry, man.
Those issues.
Like the Black Brain Trust does not endorse housing discrimination, but it might be a fine.
Hey, she got into it with her baby daddy, who wasn't even supposed to be living there. He ran her car to the garage door.
Yeah, and so nobody's gonna escape the fact that there was a garage door here yesterday. Hey, it's not there. So you just gonna take a whole garage door off and be like, yeah, man, it kind of fell off and like went into the sky, right?
Wait, time out. Where were the neighbors? Nobody saw this person disassembling a garage door?
No, the way he ran into it, man. You know the garage door opened. Hey, the garage door opened on the ceiling. It just ripped off the ceiling, man. He showed the pictures.
Oh,
God. Unbelievable, dog.
If your house has security, the garage door is one of the main things that it secures. So wouldn't the alarm just keep going off?
He ran into it with her car.
Yeah, because garage doors are known to just dissipate on command, man. You know, they're like biodegradable like that.
Usually when we're on a hangout, you usually hear complex, it says garage door open or something like that with complex.
Yeah.
I find that to be hilarious.
Good luck.
Man, look.
These are the people that we have to uplift. That we have to give them a helping hand up. Because we are wrong, because we don't want to work with these useless eaters. No.
I mean, man, it's like I have, quite honestly.
You're leaving after that.
Hello? Y'all still there?
I hear you fine.
Yeah, all right, dude. Like, there are some damages to sheetrock that I quite honestly bought sheetrock to see if I could recreate what the fuck I just saw happen to a wall. Like, I'm like, okay. How is there a hole like this in a wall? So I'm like throwing stuff through it, and I'm like, I give up, man. I gotta get out of this real estate market, man, because I mean, man, it's kind of like, Super Mario, like going over to like a piece of the brick and just jumping up, and boom, the stuff is like in a billion pieces, man. Like whenever you jump up, like this is how stuff looks, and it's like you're trying to understand that, okay, I'm providing housing for human beings. Okay, it's not that much of a hard idea not to punch a wall or stick your head through it, or somebody not to be thrown through it. It's part of day-to-day operations inside of a household. That's what you think until
maybe the sex robot malfunctioned.
You know what, man? I would be proud if that was the case. But dude, I just replaced too many walls of the same kind. And I had to be like, you know what? Dude, open range inspection like every week. And I noticed how much more stuff was broken like on a week to week basis. I'm like, you know what? Why don't we just get this stuff to people who actually want to deal with this and just get up out of the market, man? Because
Dog,
MOT, it was
dog,
your fault.
dog.
It was your
Thank
fault,
you a
and I
lot.
will explain to you how it was your fault. The number one, what's the number one rule in real estate? Location, location, location. Do not buy rental properties in black neighborhoods, at least not in the poor ones. If you're going to buy rental properties in black neighborhoods, they have to be upper class or upper middle class.
Well, you
yeah,
know
but
what?
also learn this other
Well,
thing in real estate.
they can't lie.
Disaster when you fucking rent to the wrong people.
Well,
True,
you know what?
facts.
One of my neighbors, she was having the same issue, man. She ended up having to rent it out to international students coming to do their
You know,
masters. Got guaranteed money off of that.
Yep.
Vacant lots.
Would you say Ty City?
Vacant lots. It's all
Yeah.
about in the hood. Vacant lots.
Yeah, sometimes with these vacant lots, though, as we were talking about on the guerrilla farming, is that if there was once a house there pre 1970 built, then that had lead paint in it, right? And that lead paint ended up getting into the dirt and the ground and kind of poisoned the ground. And so then you have to turn over that dirt. You have to do something about that poisoning, that lead poisoning that's in the ground, or else you won't be permitted to build anything on top of it. Those are some of the areas that you have to be concerned about. And plus, you can't dig anything until you call. At least up here, you can't dig anything until you call dig safe, or else you'll get fined even more for that.
Yep. Massive funds that they compound daily.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least in New York, anyway.
Yeah, they do the same thing here. Yeah, you try something like that. Even if you put a shovel in the ground, man, that's it.
Yep. And that inspector will come back every single day until the problem is rectified. So you would better get to know EPA very well, and a contamination abatement contractor, get him out ASAP.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm just
during the
holding.
Yeah, you know, in Aurora, man, you should see like these very large apartment complexes in problematic places, and you would see the ownership switch like every 2 or 3 years. It's called this, and then it's called that, then it's called that. Like, didn't that place get shut down for XYZ? They walk in, they get the grant funding, they don't fix the places, then they end up getting shut down, and somebody else walks in, obtain ownership. You see the the guard is up there fixing on stuff, and all of a sudden, low income Section 8, and all of a sudden it's shut down 6 or 8 months later, and it's just like a whole cycle of that just keeps going. You know, it has to be like 6 or 8 people who just form corporations, go in, buy the property, and do that.
Mm.
So I
That's
stepped away for a
exactly
second.
what I do, or
What's going on, MOT?
partners do.
Oh, there he is, right there.
Sorry about that, man. I had to get my little one some dinner and stuff.
No, that's fine. That's fine, man. We were just talking about business franchises and whatnot, and there was a cannabis franchise there for 20 grand. We thought you might have been. We thought that might have been you. So.
Well, Noah and I, we're anti-gravity, and we're working on it, man. We're working on it.
Yeah. But yeah.
Hey Mike, why don't you open one in Boston, man? I was reading an article the other day that says that there's the closest one to Boston has a 24-hour line around the block trying to get in.
Yeah.
There's none in Boston.
Well, because in Boston, they're bidding for spots, right? There's only so many brick and mortar locations available for these cannabis businesses to open up. The social equity program that we've been talking about, you hear Complex and myself talk about, is supposed to be for those who are disenfranchised by the drug war policies. So I don't even qualify for it. They would be first come, first serve. Those who got locked up and got evicted out of their houses, got arrested, things like those who are disproportionately affected by it are high priority. I wouldn't qualify for it.
Wait, Mike, so you're telling me you have no charges, you haven't done bids, and you're not sitting around making 25-hour hangouts trying to cook dudes or talk about women? Bro, you're slacking. The streets are begging you for that, Mike. Come on, man. You're slacking.
Mike, I need you to commit some crimes so that you qualify, and then, you know, we can get this shit.
Forthwith.
Yeah, but how are these guys gonna get the money to invest in this unless they do something illegal?
They're
Or
supposed to. They're supposed to get help. Yeah, they're supposed to get help from the local municipalities to get them off the ground. They're supposed to have first priority on all of these cannabis operations for the most part. The legalization aspect of it. The problem is a lot of these guys didn't show up. If anything, there was more Black women at these events than Black men, even though they have been disproportionately affected too, because they were probably living with the dude, or they were probably teenagers when it happened, so they were probably living with their mother or something like that, and they got their house, their doors kicked in by DEA or something like that, and that's how they were disproportionately affected by it. So that's why they show up for it. But outside of that, man, a lot of guys who can't read, man, they have these literacy issues, man. They have no idea what these social equity programs are about.
And brothers largely would prefer to keep it on some street shit. Okay, like that's really what chaps my hide about a lot of this shit. Like a lot of dudes are just, as opposed to, you know, really taking sharehold in this industry, because, you know, look, brothers do consume. We're consumers of this shit. I mean, I'm an avowed consumer. Like I make no bones about it. However, I also look at the business side of it too, and I could, in an idealistic setting, if Black folks were spending money with Black folks with regards to this, you could change a lot of things in a short amount of time. But that's not how we're thinking. So brothers decided, you know, they want to do it on some street shit, like this is like the 90s or something, 80s or the 90s.
What about white supremacy complex?
What?
I guess you said a white supremacy complex, but I didn't know complex.
Let me tell you something. It has not stopped it hasn't stopped anything that Anti-Gravity and I have done thus far. Like from when we started 2 years ago to where we're at now. I mean, we're partners in a farm. You know, we have our own hemp flowers, all that. We've just both been busy. Matter of fact, I don't know if Anti-Gravity's listed in, but you know, he's actually going to be taking a few trips abroad here pretty soon. So, you know, even though he and we've just been real busy with stuff, so we haven't been able to really get together and circle around and do the cannabis hangouts consistently to kind of bring a lot of like the business updates and stuff like that. We do have some marketing initiatives that, you know, we're trying to roll out, but you know, life shit happens and stuff like that. Like he's going to be heading back to the continent.
The white man has his boot on.
He has, yeah, man. He's got to go to the continent.
He will not let you do anything because he only wants his money for his people, because there's 200 million people who hate you because you're Black. So
man,
you're fake news.
Let me tell you something, Paul. Like we have not had a single white person attempt to put their foot on our necks.
Oh, so you said racism don't exist? You said racism don't exist?
That's right. Saying, you're a denier. You are a denier. Why do you hate Black people?
What I'm saying is that ain't been nan, and I just said that, yes, I got country here for that. Ain't been nan white person who has like basically stood as any kind of opposition to us getting our operations up off the ground. That's what I am saying.
Well, I want to take it back a couple of seconds ago when we were talking about you know, the social equity program and for Black males who are disproportionately affected by drug policies.
Mm-hmm.
These same guys who want to talk about Robert F. Smith and, you know, versus, you know, this other guy who had a criminal record and he came from the rags of riches story. Same guys aren't talking about these social equity programs for the legalization of cannabis.
Oddly enough, huh?
What happened? I thought everybody had to have the street cred. What happened? Where's your street? This is the only opportunity where you can use your street cred. You don't even use it
because they refuse to elevate their thinking. They
Mike,
absolutely refuse to elevate their thinking. They just want to check and they want to keep it moving. Anything that is not a check, they don't want to have anything to do with it.
These are not street dudes, man.
What are they then, Ty? What are they?
They are they are characters. They are characters. No real street person is sitting back thinking like, man, you know what? The street person that they pretend to be are the ones that actually understand that there are problems and they don't want to be there.
So I disagree. You shoot the fair one. Shoot the fair one with them, Ty.
I ain't shooting the fair one with them. I'm just saying that the street person that they pretending to be is I just see through it. It's not real to me, man.
Well, what's real to me? What's real to me is the lack of initiative on the street dude, either real or perceived, to take ownership of the community that they exist in. Because I'm saying either way, I'm looking at it, and I'm just saying whoever it is that's being validated as the real the street dude, I'm not seeing no work put in. Real or perceived, the character or the real motherfucker. I don't see either one stepping up and doing a goddamn thing. See, so to me, they're all one and the same at this point.
They are the same, because whether we're going to talk about the dudes who pretend, or we're going to talk about the dudes who are straight thorough, and they roll hard with it, they're both the same. They're both one in and of the same. They've accomplished nothing. Nothing that they do works. Okay, it is literally a legacy of failure.
We talking about people who won't even admit that it's a problem, though. That's what I'm saying.
Well, then I don't think that those people are qualified to shoot shots at brothers like us. Like straight.
That's what I'm saying. People who in the streets see it as a struggle, they do not like it, and they will tell you this is a problem. This is not good. You know,
they're not doing anything to change it.
No,
that's my point.
Yeah.
So whether they see it or not, whether they admit it or not, whether they like it or not, they refuse to do anything to change it. All they want to do is bitch and moan. So,
I'm a default.
Personally, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Well, I'm saying I'm going to default to Paul's position, right? Because I don't see nothing tangible. I don't like out of all the rhetoric. What I'm saying, where is the physical evidence of what you espouse being an actual truth? If I see nothing, then I'm just gonna default to you just blowing a bunch of fucking smoke and hot air.
Well, see, that's what I see it as.
That's what I'm saying. There's no disagreements here, but what I'm saying is that I mean, we're putting it out here for all of these Billy goats. We're putting it out here. It's like, dude, like enough with enough with all of the animal sounds. Okay, enough with all that. Produce something. And I'm not talking about a goddamn YouTube video.
He's not gonna get it, dog.
Well then, shut the fuck up. Don't bring that shit around us.
You ain't gonna get it, dog.
I was hoping that Game Changer would come on, man. I sent him the link and everything, but unfortunately he's not available.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was hoping he would come on, man, because I really wanted to hear from him. I didn't actually
hear that. Yeah, he was on that hangout.
Yeah, because they took the hangout down, so I didn't get a chance to actually hear it.
What's up with that?
Oh man, that's
come on, man. You don't want to leave no record or nothing.
But I got it. But they got records, right?
You're wrong, son. You're wrong, because now you're violating by you trying to ask me my government name, son. You wrong. And that's these guys' entire MO. Empty rhetoric based around emotional responses. So I don't take any of them seriously. I don't, because they are nothing to take seriously. They do nothing but run their mouths from sunup to sundown. They produce nothing from sunup to sundown. And then you have the ones who are drug dealers. So you know what? I find it I find it of note, I find it of interest that this supposed white man, this white boogeyman who has his boot on your neck, who won't let you have anything, but he certainly didn't stop you from selling drugs to people who look like you. But now that all of a sudden, so when you were doing that, you were celebrated as a criminal, destroying the very same area that you live in. You were celebrated, and you did so willingly. So now you use that money to create a business, a barbershop, a nail salon, a record shop. Fair enough. But now you're still celebrated, and you turn around and say, oh, white people don't want to have us to do anything. They won't want to let us do anything. Help me wrap my head around the stack upon stack of hypocrisies and failure that is your entire life.
Paul, you can't, and I'm not going to waste the energy trying to help you.
Exactly. That's why I call them what they are. They're useless eaters.
Okay,
Let
Paul,
them die.
Is anybody taking that position also considering themselves pro-black?
Yes,
Yeah,
they do.
dude. This platform that you're on, Thai City. My like on numerous occasions, Mike and I have had to argue this point. Okay, it's called the Black Brain Trust for a reason. Okay, it's not the Black Brain Trust because we're anti-black. You know what I mean? It's like let's really think about that. Is the black our brothers in the Black Brain Trust, are they pro-black? If we have to ask the question.
Well, I think what the Black Brain Trust moniker denotes is that there's an intellectual threshold to be considered part of this collective.
Thank you.
And there's not a necessarily, I wouldn't necessarily attribute it to a certain intellectual quotient, but when I say an intellectual threshold, that means that you have the ability at least to think abstractly and to think beyond, the current time frame. Again, I think what we see here is that there's a collection of people who look at a trajectory and they look at sustainability of certain actions. And so what are we doing now? And can we continue this in perpetuity? Or is it a waste of time? And these are questions that are not asked on every platform. And I think that is what distinguishes the Black Brain Trust from other quote unquote black platforms, is because they're not looking at the continuity. They're not looking at perpetuity. They're not looking at sustainability. They're not looking at trajectory. They're looking at here and now. And some of them are just looking at shock value, unfortunately. And I think that there's just a disconnect there. And so they think that, or there's an assumption that because your thought process deviates from what we widely see elsewhere, that somehow you think you're better, or you just don't consider yourself, quote unquote, for the black community.
Right. And it's funny you say that, Super Chiz, when you say the shock value, right? Because we can largely just equate that to entertainment value. But okay, what is entertainment value versus, say, like real estate values? Right? What is entertainment value versus like the value of precious metals? Like if we're gonna let's compare values. Again, if we can quantify and actually attach numbers to things, then we can really start to see, what actually holds an intrinsic value or not. And so if we don't want to take the conversation there, I guess what one way we can determine the value is by how much super chat money a fucking hangout made or something.
Complex.
But see, you can associate a value with entertainment, because we see that entertainers are some of the highest paid individuals on earth. But here's the difference. The money that goes to entertainers, does it go back to the community? See, that's where that question of sustainability comes into play. Like, yeah, entertainment is, everybody likes to be entertained, but entertainment is something that needs to be indulged in moderation. Right? Like as much as I love to be entertained, I understand that there's a certain amount of time that I have to devote to work in progress.
But Tris, you cannot sustain a fucking community off of entertainment alone.
Not at all.
But now,
this is what I'm saying. It's like, dude, go ahead, Paul. I'm sorry.
No, you're finished. Yeah.
No, go ahead.
I see black people, and I hear black people, and they say they don't like economics. They don't like capitalism. They don't like money. They don't like finance. To hell with business. How can I take you seriously when you make the claims that you want to build anything? How in the world do you plan to build anything in this world that we live in without at least a rudimentary understanding and of economics and finance and capitalism? Capitalism is not the enemy. It is a tool. Capitalism is like fire. It is a tool to build or a weapon to destroy. It's how you use it. Okay?
Yeah, but look.
But see, when black people are so focused on everything's emotional, and they're angry and they want to lash out and they want to return the hate. So how can I possibly take anything seriously when people are saying those things? I can't take that seriously.
But Paul, the person that you have to become to be a true capitalist, I don't think a lot of black people are willing to do it. And
No,
not only,
right.
but do it as a community.
You have to do it as an individual first. You have to, and there's nothing wrong with that. There is nothing. Not. Again, it is only black people who fail to understand that. It is successful people who come together and they work together to create a larger success. But they individually had to create something. They individually brought something to the table and they worked together. Again, it is only black people that look at the successes of every other group and say, well, you know what, we're just going to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, but that's my gripe
around that.
That's my gripe against gentrification. Like, if you're not gentrifying, if you're not gentrifying, you're being gentrified. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
that was the reason why I said, well, look, who would you prefer do it?
Exactly. It's not a bad thing. It's not.
It's gonna happen. Who would you prefer do it? Us or them?
Well, maybe the problem is. Maybe the problem is channels like the Black Brain Trust represent the gentrification of YouTube, at least in the black in the quote unquote black continuum, because now you're raising the bar, and so the conversation goes from entertainment to actually what are we doing to progress? Because when people talk about the black collective, see the problem with the rhetoric surrounding the black collective, nobody actually makes a compelling argument for someone to want to be included in a black collective or to be considered a member of the black collective, because there's no talk of actual building. There's no talk of actual benefits to be yielded from an actual association with that entity. Like for instance, a franchise, right? There's a benefit to be had from an association with a franchise because there's already marketing. There's already a supply chain infrastructure. There's certain things that's already in place. So you just walk into a situation and you yield benefit from your association to that actual entity. But when you have a black collective that's not necessarily building, or at least as a whole, there's certain pockets, of course, that are actually progressing. But as a whole, can we really look at the progress of the collective as a whole, tangible in comparison to other communities? And there's various reasons why. There's various obstacles, obviously, that confront, Black America. But that's besides the point. The point is that what is the compelling factor for me to want to be considered part of you? And these are not the arguments that I'm hearing. The argument, the argument that I'm hearing, the only benefit is that there's a low threshold of entry, so it's easy. I could just look a certain way, and now I'm part of something. I don't have to do any real work.
You got to put in some work though to get that street credibility though, right?
OG in the house.
But even then, what real work are you putting in if your street credibility is not marred by the fact that you cooperate with law enforcement? Now you do these things to be considered street, and you want to get the accolades associated with being associated with the streets, but then you don't want to do that. You don't want to pay the debt to society that's associated with that. You see, so it's like it's really the whole street credibility thing is really a myth, because Complex said it quite eloquently. What is the actual tangible cash value? What can you buy with street credibility? Can I walk in a store? Can I go on Amazon.com?
But Trey, this what I'm saying.
Buy
Listen.
a i9 Intel, what's it i9 core computer with street credibility? I need a new computer.
That's how we think. You can't tell them that, and they are not going to change their mind anytime soon, man.
That's why I keep saying leave them to their own devices. I don't care what they say.
I think what Super Truth is saying is that what is the value of the street cred, right? So I think street cred is the last bastion of masculinity for them. If you
it's a false masculinity. It's a false masculinity.
It's false. It's false, right? But at the same time, it's the last bastion for them. So if you take that away from them, then what do they have?
Mike, you make an excellent point because then at that point when you just laid out, it's akin to a hungry animal being backed into a corner. They will literally fight to the death to protect themselves.
Well, MOT calls them reptiles. I don't know if I call them an animal in that right.
Reptiles.
It could be. Could be. They are goats,
right? I call them savages and useless eaters. So.
No, but I mean, we put up the talking points on various hangouts. I don't know how much more else we can put up. I mean, at this point, if you're not even having that conversation now, it's probably too late for you. Probably too late, in my opinion. Give your closing thoughts, and then we'll close out at 12.
I just posed this question: if you're gentrified from your street, then has your credit been devalued? What again? I asked the question, and I hope that this makes this hangout makes the circles, or it makes the rounds in that area over there, because I'm posing a serious question here, right? If you have no control over the powers of gentrification, over the spectrum of gentrification, then what is the true value of your street credit? And I'm done.
Your street credibility is useless. It's only good on the street. The street produces nothing but the drug trade and the sex trade and thievery and murder. So things that have zero productive value in an organized society. Therefore, they have no value. They have absolutely no value. I recently saw the movie Alita Battle Angel, and the character that Mahershala Ali played. You know what? Listen, he said he had a chance to go up to the luxury city, but he turned that down because he said he would rather rule in hell than be a mere peasant up in heaven. So all that street cred That's all that these guys have. And the thing is, it's not just the guys, it's the guys, it's the women, and unfortunately, it's the youth. And I keep saying that is the mentality of the majority of Black people in America. And that mindset, it won't change. So, which is why I keep saying, leave them to their own devices. The best and the brightest, you work with them and you create a new society and culture of Black America. One last thought, and then I'm done. I promise. Xanatos Clutch. Look up his seminal work, The Three Fates of Black People in America. I'm done.
Complex. I'm gonna put forward this now. If Home Depot tomorrow or Lowe's brought everything that you can use to rebuild a 3 square block area in any rundown Black neighborhood, put it on the street and say, look, all you guys with your street cred, you sitting on the stoop, you walk around the street, hands in your pocket. Any one of these buildings that you're going to repair, you use whatever you want here to repair it. And the building is yours. How many of those buildings do you think would be repaired in 6 months?
Damn.
I had to call the Mexicans.
Street cred. No. If you call the Mexicans now, the whole 3 blocks will be not only in 6 months, in about a month, because they be bringing people up from Mexico.
You just gentrified yourself.
Shoot, Caribbean people were bringing people from the Caribbean. African people, Caribbean people. I mean,
it's a done deal.
But you can't pay Mexicans in beta male coins though. So for the street dudes, that's not going to work out too well for them.
Oh, you pay me in beta male pesos.
Ah, beta male pesos. Nice.
Hey, Paul, to add to what you were saying, man, I'll close it out with this. My father was higher up. He wasn't on the street. He isolated himself from the lower level street dudes. My dad got arrested, and when he got locked up, he got a conspiracy charge. They couldn't tie anything to him. They couldn't really tie no crime to him. They just know he had a lot of money, and they arrested him with a lot of money. When my dad said nobody knew him. He moved real low key. When he got to prison, his street cred never even existed. My uncles was already in there. He said when that happened, he knew when he got back out that he had to change because he expected people to look out for him when he went to prison. But when he changed the environment, the street cred meant nothing. And that's what he got a degree in agriculture. Now he managed a couple golf courses in Orlando, and he never looked back.
Exactly. He never looked back. And see, he turned everything around, and he never looked back. So he's trying to create some success for himself. Now, that is an individual who can work with other individuals who have success. Collectively, they can build something larger and create more success for other people. For some reason, everyone else seems to understand that concept except Black people.
Yeah, but street cred is exactly that. It's not real. And it took something like prison for my dad to understand that shit was real. And I don't think a lot of people get into situations where they understand that it's not real.
Well, for me to close out, just in reference to street credibility, when somebody is actually able to define the metrics for street credibility, and when you define the metrics, tell me how those metrics translate into the progression and or advancement of the Black collective, then I'll be on board. But
until then,
you can't convince me of street credibility at all. Period. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you have not already done so. Share the video if possible, and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust, including those on the community tab, where we
Please,
post their
please share it. Please share it, especially where the goats graze. Please.
We'll hear about it tomorrow.
Yo, what is this goat you guys are talking about?
I'll email you. I'll email you.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
All right, peace and shalom.
Peace.